Introduction: The Stolen Fire. Operations Manual for the Human Reactor. There exists a force in the universe that predates light. It is a fundamental vibration, a cosmic hunger that drives stars to collapse in order to be born and galaxies to spin in spirals of continuous creation. That same force, compressed, densified, and encoded in biology, lives within you. It sleeps at the base of your spine. It pulsates in your gonads. It awakens in adolescence as an uncontrollable dragon and accompanies you until your last breath. Society has given it many names. Religion has called it sin and tried to suppress it with guilt. Biology has called it reproductive instinct and reduced it to a mechanism for copying genes. Modern culture has called it sex and turned it into a cheap consumer product, a marketing tool, and an escape route for boredom. But all those names are wrong labels. They are desperate attempts to categorize something that terrifies us because of its magnitude. What you carry between your legs is not just a reproductive organ. It is not a toy for pleasure. What you carry there is a nuclear fusion reactor, and the fuel it processes is the most potent, volatile, and creative energy in existence: Eros. Welcome to the Thermodynamics of Eros. This is not a book about how to have better sex. If you are looking for techniques to last longer in bed or acrobatic positions to impress your partner, you are in the wrong place. Those are minor applications of a greater technology. This is a book about high-energy engineering. It is a technical manual for understanding that sexual energy is no different from creative energy, intellectual energy, or spiritual energy. They are the same electricity, operating at different voltages. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy is neither created nor destroyed. It only transforms. Apply this to your body. You generate a massive amount of sexual energy, libido, jing, qi, every day. It is your basal power plant. Where does that energy go? If you do not transform it, if you do not elevate it, physics dictates that it must exit. And the easiest, lowest resistance exit is downward and outward. It is the quick discharge. It is nuclear fission. It is the momentary burst of pleasure that leaves you empty, tired, and docile. We live in a civilization designed to milk your reactor. Look around you. Advertising, omnipresent pornography, the hypersexualization of culture. Everything is designed to keep you in a constant state of coolant leak. The system wants you to spend your nuclear gold on copper coins. It wants you to seek cheap dopamine, the quick spark, instead of accumulating the charge necessary to ignite the higher centers of your brain. A human being who wastes their sexual energy is easy to control. They are a being without drive, without willpower, without the creative aggression necessary to change their reality. But what happens if you close the escape valve? What happens if, instead of expelling the steam, you decide to contain it, compress it, and redirect it? Then you enter the terrain of inner alchemy. The ancient Taoists, tantric yogis, and medieval alchemists knew a secret that modern science is only beginning to rediscover. The spine is a particle accelerator. It is a superconducting cable designed to carry energy from the base station, the sacrum genitals, to the master light bulb, the brain pineal gland. When raw sexual energy, which is dense, hot, and heavy, is forced to rise through this channel, it undergoes a process of refinement. It transmutes. What was carnal desire below, upon reaching the heart, becomes compassion and personal magnetism. What was emotion in the heart, upon reaching the throat, becomes word of power and artistic creativity. And what was expression in the throat, upon reaching the brain, becomes genius and illumination. Napoleon Hill, in his study of the most successful people in history, discovered a common denominator. They all had a highly developed sexual nature and had learned the art of sexual transmutation. Are not people without desire. They are people with immense desire who have learned not to waste it in physical friction, using it instead to penetrate the mysteries of the universe. This audiobook is your invitation to stop being a consumer of pleasure and become a creator of reality. We are going to dismantle shame. Shame is the insulator that prevents the current from rising. We are going to dismantle repression. Repressing sexual energy is like covering the exhaust pipe of a running car. The engine explodes. Repression creates neurosis, illness, and perversion. The solution is not forced chastity or rampant lust. The solution is conscious circulation. In the next chapters, we will explore the neurochemistry of ecstasy. We will understand why dopamine is the hormone of lack, I want more, and how to transition to the chemistry of fullness. We will study the hidden anatomy of your sacrum, the sacred bone, which acts as a hydraulic pump to move cerebrospinal fluid, the sacred oil or Christos toward the cranium. We will learn breathing and muscular locking techniques, bandhas, to reverse the flow of ejaculation and convert orgasm into an implosion of light that nourishes your organs and rejuvenates your tissues. But above all, we are going to talk about power. Because sexual energy is the raw material of manifestation, it is the life force in its purest state. If you want to create a business, heal your body or attract an extraordinary life, you need fuel. And you have a full tank between your legs that you have been emptying down the drain. It is time to close the tap of loss and open the floodgate of ascent. It is time to stop using your nuclear reactor to light a candle. Get ready to feel heat. Get ready to feel a vitality that you may not have felt since adolescence, but this time under the control of a mature mind. The fire has been stolen from the gods. Now it is in your hands. The question is, will you burn yourself with it, or will you use it to forge your destiny? Chapter 1. The Pelvic Reactor. If you look at an engineering map of the human body, you will notice that most systems are designed for constant circulation and movement. Blood never stops, air flows in and out, and nerve impulses travel at lightning speed. But there is one structure, located at the exact center of gravity of your body, that has a different function. Its function is high-density storage. We are talking about the pelvis, and specifically the key piece that closes the spine below, the sacrum bone. The etymology is no coincidence. Sacrum comes from the Latin os sacrum, meaning sacred bone. Why did the ancient anatomists who named the femur tibia or humerus with functional names decide to call this triangular bone sacred? What did they know that we have forgotten? They knew that the sacrum is not simply a mechanical support for the spine. They knew it is the treasure vault. In terms of biophysics and the thermodynamics of Eros, the sacrum and the nerve plexus surrounding it, the sacral plexus, act as a capacitor. In electricity, a capacitor is a component capable of storing energy in an internal electric field to release it in a sudden discharge. Your sacrum is the most powerful biological capacitor that exists. It is the place where vital energy, Jing in Chinese medicine, Ojas in Ayurveda, is densified and held in a latent state, awaiting the ignition command. However, most modern human beings live under the drainage deception. We have been taught to see our pelvic and genital area only as an excretion and reproduction system. We see the pelvis as the ground floor, the dirty basement of the bodily building, where the drain pipes, urethra, rectum are, and where animal impulses occur. And energetically we use it as such, as a drain. Every time we feel an accumulation of pressure in that area, sexual arousal, our basic cultural and biological programming tells us there is too much pressure, open the valve, empty the tank. And we seek the quick discharge, ejaculatory orgasm or superficial friction, to return to the state of empty repose. This is the consumer mindset, spending what you have. But the engineer of Eros sees the pelvis differently. They do not see a drain, they see a reactor. They know that the pressure felt down there is not something that should be relieved or eliminated. That pressure is voltage potential. It is the signal that the reactor is charged and ready to power higher systems. Let's analyze the structure of the sacrum. It is a triangular bone formed by the fusion of 5 vertebrae. It is shaped like an inverted wedge pointing toward the earth. But the most interesting thing is its porosity and its content. The sacrum protects the end of the spinal cord, cauda equina or horse's tail, a bundle of thick, powerful nerves that connect directly to the brain. And curiously, the sacrum is one of the few bones in the adult body that maintains high production of red bone marrow, hematopoietic, throughout life. It is a blood factory. It is a stem cell factory. It is the point where matter is densest and life is most fertile. In the Thermodynamics of Eros, We posit that sexual energy is not produced at the moment of arousal. Arousal is simply the act of flipping the switch of a power plant that is always active. The reactor is always on, in standby mode, generating a background vibration that keeps you alive, that grows your nails, that regenerates your skin. When you become sexually aroused, what you are doing is increasing the power of that reactor to 100%. Heat increases, blood rushes to the area, electricity accumulates in the pudendal nerves. This is where the usual human tragedy occurs. Imagine you have a nuclear power plant capable of lighting an entire city. Your brain, your creativity, your health. You turn on the reactor. Energy rises. The turbines spin. And just when the power is maximum, instead of channeling that energy into the city's power grid, you open the emergency gates and let all the steam escape into the air. The city remains in the dark, and you are left exhausted, with the reactor empty, having to wait days to accumulate fuel again. That is compulsive ejaculation. That is sex without transmutation. It is a massive leakage of potential. It is using a lightning bolt to light a cigarette. To become a master of energy, the first step is the resacralization of the pelvis. You have to change your mental map. Your pelvis is not the basement, it is the engine room, it is the place where the fire resides. And fire is not bad. Fire is dangerous, yes, but it is the basis of civilization. Fire cooks food, forges steel, and powers rockets. Your sexual fire has the same purpose, to cook your consciousness, forge your character, and propel your spirit. But to handle fire, you need a strong container. If your pelvis is weak, hypertonic pelvic floor, if your nervous connection to the area is poor, insensitivity, disconnection, or if your attitude toward it is rejection, the container is cracked. The fire will escape and burn you, addiction, obsession, perversion, or go out, impotence, frigidity, apathy. In this first part of the chapter, I want you to bring your physical attention to your base. If you are sitting, feel your sit bones, ischial tuberosities, against the chair. Feel the weight of your body resting there. Visualize your sacrum bone, that triangle of power at the base of your back. Imagine it not as an inert bone, but as a generating crystal shining with ruby red or intense orange light. Feel that there is a battery there, and realize that for years you have been treating that battery as if it were a nuisance, emptying it as soon as it charged a little because you didn't know what to do with so much energy. Being hot bothers me, you thought. I need to discharge. What a mistake. Being hot is being charged. It is the ideal state for creation. The problem is not the charge. The problem is that you didn't have the wires to route that charge to the brain. In the second part, we will talk about what exactly that fuel generated in the reactor is. We will talk about the difference between the biology of reproduction and the physics of evolution, Jing, libido, and the raw material of immortality. If the sacrum is the container, what does it contain? What exactly is sexual energy? Is it just hormones? Is it testosterone and estrogen? Is it seminal fluid and vaginal fluids? Yes, those are the chemical manifestations. They are the material precipitate of the energy. But the energy itself is something much more subtle and powerful. It is what the ancient Taoists called Jing. Jing is the raw material of life. It is the condensed vital essence. According to traditional Chinese medicine, we are born with a fixed amount of Jing, inherited from our parents, like an initial bank account or a candle of a certain size. Every day we live, we spend a little of that candle to keep the body running. Stress spends Jing, illness spends Jing, but nothing spends Jing as quickly as the loss of sexual fluids and the uncontrolled emotional explosion of ejaculatory orgasm. It is said that when the Jing runs out, the body dies. It is the nuclear fuel. When the uranium rods are spent, the reactor shuts down. Western science called it libido. Freud intuited its power, although he limited it to the psychological plane. Jung went further and saw it as general psychic energy. But the Thermodynamics of Eros defines it as high-density bioelectricity. Here is the crucial distinction you must imprint on your mind. Your body has two operating modes for this energy. One, reproductive mode, biology. The goal is to create another external human body. Energy densifies into fluids, sperm, egg, is directed downward and outward. It is an act of sacrifice. You give a part of your own life, Jing, to create a new life. It is noble, necessary for the species, but costly for the individual. 2. Evolutionary mode, alchemy. The goal is to recreate your own body and expand your consciousness. Energy is not densified into fluids, or the process is reversed. It is directed upward and inward. It is an act of self-regeneration. You use your Jing to fuel your own brain and repair your own organs. Most people live trapped exclusively in mode 1, even if they don't want children. They use contraceptives, but energetically they are still executing the Make Babies program. Every time they have sex, their system mobilizes massive resources, minerals, proteins, neurotransmitters, electricity, and prepares them for expulsion. Even if there is no physical pregnancy, there is a failed energetic pregnancy. The energy left, it's scattered in the sheets, and the body is left in deficit. It enters the refractory period. In men, that drop in energy and post-coital sleep. In women, sometimes a void or drain. That deficit is the cost of giving away your gold. But the evolutionary mode is the secret of the immortals, metaphorically and perhaps biologically in terms of longevity. If you learn to separate orgasm from ejaculation, as we will see in future chapters, or if you learn to circulate arousal without reaching the point of no return, you are hacking the system. You are generating the nuclear heat of mode 1, but applying it to the circuit of mode 2. You are fooling the body benevolently. The body says, "Alert, we are going to reproduce, bring out the best energy reserves, mobilize stem cells, raise the dopamine, prepare the elixir of life." The body puts all that treasure on the table, in the pelvis. And you, the alchemist, say, "Thank you for the treasure, but we are not going to spend it outside. We are going to invest it inside." And through breathing intention and muscular contraction, you pump that elixir upward, into the spine, into the brain. What happens when that life-creating energy touches a cell in your liver or brain instead of exiting? The cell is rejuvenated. Literally, the energy that had the power to create an entire fetus, a new being with eyes, brain, and heart, is now used to repair your brain and your heart. It is a superdose of vitality. It is the internal fountain of youth. This is why people who practice sexual transmutation, like many brilliant artists, elite athletes, or mystics, have a special sparkle in their eyes. They have a magnetism that attracts people. They have inexhaustible energy. They look younger than they are. It is not genetics, it is Jing saving and reinvestment. They have a full tank. While others go through life on reserve, desperately looking for the next stimulus to feel alive for a little while, the transmuter lives plugged into their own nuclear power plant. But there is a danger. Accumulating nuclear energy without knowing how to circulate it is dangerous. If you fill the pelvic reactor with Jing, arousal, and do not let it out, repression, but also do not send it up, transmutation, the pressure increases. The hot water stagnates in the pelvis. This creates what the Taoists call stagnant dragon fire. In men, this leads to pelvic congestion, blue balls, prostatitis, extreme irritability, toxic aggression, and sexual obsession. They become predators or neurotics. In women, it leads to ovarian cysts, fibroids, emotional hysteria, violent mood swings, and pelvic rigidity. That is why this book is titled Thermodynamics, because it is about managing heat and pressure. I am not asking you to repress yourself. Repression is stagnation. I am asking you to learn quantum plumbing. If you generate pressure below, you have to open the pipe above. If you don't know how to raise the energy, it is better to expel it, have normal sex, because staying with stagnant energy will make you sick. But if you learn how to raise it, then the game changes. Then you become a self-generated being. Transformed Jing becomes Qi, vital energy of movement, and finally Shen, spiritual energy, consciousness. It is the ladder of ascension. You convert lead, raw sexual desire, into gold, light of consciousness. Your pelvic reactor is the alchemist's furnace. Your genitals are not toys, they are the crucible where immortality is brewed. We have established the what and the where. You know you have a reactor, sacrum. You know you have nuclear fuel, Jing, libido. And you know you have a choice. Spend it on creating babies and momentary pleasure, fission, discharge, or invest it in creating a super-self fusion charge. The world will tell you that you are strange if you don't discharge. They will tell you that it's not healthy to hold back. They will tell you that sex is a physiological necessity like urinating, and that you have to empty yourself. That is the view of the animal man. The God man knows that sex is not like urine. Urine is waste. Semen and sexual energy are essence. No one gets rich by throwing gold coins into the river just because they weigh them down in their pocket. The God man learns to carry the weight of the gold until he learns how to melt it to make a Chapter 2. Fission versus Fusion. We live in the most stimulated society in human history, yet we are the generation with the least vital energy. We have access to infinite calories, infinite entertainment, and infinite digital sexual stimulation. We should be gods walking the earth, overflowing with power. But look around you. You see slumped shoulders. You see dull eyes. You see a chronic lack of motivation, abulia. You see anxiety. You see men and women dragging themselves through life waiting for the weekend. Where is the leak? The leak is not in your muscles or your blood. The leak is in your brain reward system. You have been hacked. Your nuclear reactor, the sacrum, is trying to function, but you have a virus in the control software that forces you to purge the fuel before it can generate real power. That virus has a chemical name: short-circuit dopamine addiction. To understand the thermodynamics of Eros, we must distinguish between two types of nuclear reactions: fission and fusion. Nuclear fission, what current atomic power plants and old atomic bombs do, consists of breaking a heavy atom to release energy. You break matter, you divide, you separate. The result is a violent, fast, and dirty burst of heat that leaves radioactive toxic waste that takes thousands of years to clean up. In your biology, fission is the discharge orgasm, compulsive ejaculation or superficial climax. It is the act of using accumulated sexual tension to break the state of stress. You feel pressure, you seek friction, physical or visual, and boom, you burst. The energy is released outward. For 1 second you feel relief, but it is a deceptive relief. It is the peace of the graveyard. You have emptied the tank. You have broken the atom of your vitality, and what remains afterward, the toxic residue, is prolactin. Let's talk hard neuroendocrinology. Immediately after a male ejaculation, and to a lesser extent in conventional female climax, the brain floods the system with prolactin. Prolactin is the hormone of satiety, but it is also the hormone of chemical castration. It is anti-dopamine and anti-testosterone. Its biological function is to tell you, you have reproduced, now sleep. Don't be aggressive. Don't look for more. Stay still. It is an evolutionary mechanism to prevent the male from exhausting himself chasing females infinitely. But in the modern world, where you can induce this cycle 5 times a day with a click of the mouse, prolactin becomes chronic. You live in a perpetual state of "I'm done." Your ambition dies. Your hunger for life dies. You become a functional eunuch. You have genitals, but you lack the fire to conquer the world because your brain believes you have already conquered it, biologically speaking, 10 minutes ago in the bathroom. This fission cycle, tension taulus itaro, explosion taulus itaro tau toxic residue, is governed by dopamine. And this is where we must correct a massive cultural misunderstanding. People believe that dopamine is the pleasure molecule. They think dopamine makes you feel good. False. Dopamine is the molecule of desire and prediction of error. Dopamine does not give you happiness. Dopamine gives you seeking. It is the molecule that tells you there is something good there. Go find it, chase it, click, swipe, open it. Its function is to move you. It is the fuel for the hunt. But dopamine is treacherous. It promises a happiness it never delivers. It promises you that if you watch that porn video, if you eat that sugar, if you buy that car, you will be happy. It floods you with excitement before the act. But the moment you get the reward, dopamine plummets. It leaves you empty. It leaves you wanting more. It is the chemistry of eternal scarcity. It is the chemistry of never enough. The trap of cheap dopamine is that we have short-circuited the system. Evolutionarily, to get a sexual dopamine rush, you had to be strong, compete with other males, court a female, build a shelter, prove worth, create a connection. There was massive effort involved. The cost of dopamine was high, so the system remained in balance. Today the cost is zero. You take out your phone, you open an incognito tab, and you have access to an infinite digital harem of perfect bodies doing things no ancient king could even dream of. Your reptilian brain doesn't know they are pixels. Your brain thinks you are the genetic Genghis Khan. It thinks you have impregnated 1,000 women. It shoots dopamine to stratospheric levels. You turn the fission reactor to the maximum. And then you discharge. Nuclear fission on the couch. The result? Receptor desensitization. When you bombard your neuronal receptors with so much artificial dopamine, the brain, to protect itself from electrical overload, burns or shuts down the receptors, down regulation. You become deaf to pleasure. Normal things no longer excite you. A sunset no longer moves you. A real conversation with a real woman bores you. A book seems slow. Your work seems unbearable. You need increasingly stronger, more bizarre, more extreme stimuli just to feel something. This is the death of Eros. It's not that you lack sexual energy. It's that you have burned out the transmission wires with dirty voltage. Porn, and I don't just mean X-rated movies, but the pornographic attitude of quick consumption on Tinder, Instagram, and Life, is the alchemist's kryptonite. It is a hole in the fuel tank. As long as you are addicted to Fission, breaking yourself to feel momentary relief, you can never accumulate the necessary pressure for fusion. You will never reach critical mass. Critical mass is the key concept in nuclear engineering. You need a minimum amount of fissile material accumulated in a confined space for the reaction to become self-sustaining. In the thermodynamics of Eros, you need to accumulate a massive amount of jing, sexual energy, in your system, without releasing it for a prolonged time for the phase change to occur. You need the pressure to rise. You need the heat to rise. And dopamine addiction forces you to open the safety valve as soon as the pressure gauge rises a little. I feel anxious. I masturbate. I feel bored. I check Instagram. You are like a pressure cooker that never cooks the food because you lift the lid every 5 minutes to let the steam escape. In this first part, I want you to be brutally honest with yourself. We are not talking about morality. I am not telling you that masturbation or porn are sinful. I am telling you they are inefficient. I am telling you they are uneconomical. From an energy engineering standpoint, you are trading diamonds for plastic. You are trading your capacity to create empires, art, or health, fusion, for 3 seconds of muscle spasm and a cloud of prolactin, fission. Is the exchange worth it? Your soul knows it is not. That's why you feel that dull guilt, that strange emptiness after the cheap discharge. It is not religious guilt. It is biological repentance. It is your body weeping over the loss of its gold. It is your spirit knowing that you just threw the only substance capable of making you fly down the toilet. In the second part, we will talk about the alternative. We will talk about fusion. We will talk about the chemistry of oxytocin and anandamide. And we will talk about how to close the crack in the reactor to start building a star inside you. The physics of sovereignty and the construction of the star. If fission is breaking and separating, ejaculating, losing, fusion is uniting and pressurizing. Nuclear fusion is what happens in the heart of the sun. Hydrogen atoms are subjected to such immense pressure and temperature that instead of breaking, they fuse to form helium. In that process of union, they release an amount of energy millions of times greater than fission, but it is clean energy. It is pure light. It is life-giving heat. It leaves no toxic residue. It is self-sustaining. In the thermodynamics of Eros, fusion is the act of retaining and circulating sexual energy. It is feeling the arousal, the hydrogen, and instead of expelling it, subjecting it to the pressure of your consciousness and breath until it transforms into a higher substance, the helium spirit. This is called transmutation or brahmacharya or sexual kung fu. What is the neurochemistry of fusion? If you stop chasing cheap dopamine, the hunt, you start cultivating other neurotransmitters. When you abstain from compulsive discharge and learn to be with your high sexual energy without panicking, your brain changes. Androgen receptor regulation. Studies show that abstinence from ejaculation even for short periods of 7 days, increases the density of androgen receptors in the brain. Not only do you have more circulating testosterone, which also rises, but your brain becomes more sensitive to it. You become more male, or more female in its yang polarity, with less effort. Your voice deepens, your gaze becomes fixed, your posture straightens. Oxytocin and serotonin. By leaving the cycle of desperate seeking, dopamine, you enter the cycle of presence and connection. Oxytocin is not just for hugging, it is the molecule of safety and trust. A man or woman who is not desperate to discharge their sexual energy emanates deep security. They need nothing from outside, they are already full. Anandamide. This is the jewel in the crown. Its name comes from the Sanskrit ananda, bliss. It is a natural endocannabinoid. It is the molecule of spiritual bliss. When sexual energy is sublimated and rises to the brain, it stimulates the production of anandamide. The difference is brutal. Dopamine gives you excitement, nervousness. Anandamide gives you ecstasy, ecstatic peace. Fission gives you pleasure. Fusion gives you joy. But to achieve fusion, you have to overcome the Coolidge effect. In biology, the Coolidge effect describes the phenomenon by which a male, and to a lesser extent a female, automatically renews their sexual desire if a new partner is presented, even if they are exhausted from copulating with the previous partner. It is the biological impulse for novelty. It is the basis of porn addiction. There is always a new video, a new face. The Coolidge effect is the enemy of fusion, because fusion requires depth, not novelty. Fusion requires you to stay with the same energy, or the same partner, and go deeper and deeper, increasing the pressure, instead of jumping to something new to relieve the tension. The alchemist chooses energetic monogamy, even if single. They choose to be faithful to their own energy. They choose not to scatter. When you close the leaks, you quit porn, you quit compulsive masturbation, you quit empty sexual relationships, the phenomenon of system pressurization occurs. At first, it is uncomfortable. You will feel heat. You will feel irritability. You will feel that you need to explode. Your fission-addicted body will scream, "Let it out, it's too much." That is the critical moment. That is the transmutation threshold. If you give in and masturbate, you go back to zero. You go back to being a normal, drained human. If you endure, if you breathe, if you move that energy, with the techniques we will see in part 2 of the book, you break the sound barrier. The energy unable to exit below has no choice but to rise. It breaks the sacral dam and ascends the spine, and suddenly the irritability turns into a laser focus for your work. The lust turns into charisma. The heat turns into mental light. You have ignited the fusion reactor. Now you are a star. A star has so much gravity that it attracts planets toward it. It doesn't have to chase them. A human being in a state of fusion, retention, and transmutation develops a terrifying magnetism. People turn to look at you. Opportunities arrive. Money arrives. Why? Because life is energy, and life is attracted to whoever has more energy. 99% of people are black holes. They absorb energy, seek validation, seek pleasure. They are empty. You become a sun. You radiate energy. You give value. You give presence. You are full. And everyone wants to orbit around a sun. Let's talk about the vital economy of fusion. Manufacturing 5 milliliters of semen, an average ejaculation, is one of the most costly biological processes that exist. The body has to collect lecithin, calcium, phosphorus, biological salts, albumin, and above all, zinc. The brain and central nervous system are made of the same substances. Ayurvedic texts say that it takes 40 drops of blood to create 1 drop of bone marrow, and 40 drops of marrow to create 1 drop of semen. It is the most refined substance in the body. It is white blood. It is your gold reserve. Every time you ejaculate out of vice, fission, you are spitting out your brain. You are spitting out your immunity. You are spitting out your longevity. The return on investment, ROI, of a dopamine orgasm is terrible. You spend gold, you receive 3 seconds of plastic. When you practice fusion, the body reabsorbs those nutrients. If the sperm is not used, the body breaks it down and resends those super high-quality nutrients to the bloodstream, but now charged with the frequency of life. Your skin improves, your hair thickens, your joints heal. You are practicing alchemical cannibalism. You are eating yourself to make yourself stronger. You are recycling your own potency. The choice is yours. You have 2 buttons on your control panel. Red button, fission. Immediate pleasure, energy loss, addiction, mediocrity, premature aging. Blue button, fusion. Initial discomfort, power accumulation, magnetism, genius, longevity. You cannot press both at once. Thermodynamics does not forgive. Either the energy exits or the energy rises. If you want to write the great novel, build the great company, or achieve enlightenment, you need fuel. You cannot go to the moon with an empty tank. From today, start seeing your sexual impulses not as urge to have sex, but as charge notifications. When you feel desire, say, "Great, the reactor is at 100%. I have energy available." And instead of opening your pants, open your project, open your notebook, open your meditation, open your physical training. Use the rocket's thrust to take off, not to explode on the launch pad. Chapter 3. The First Law of Erotic Thermodynamics. In classical physics, the first law of thermodynamics is an absolute dogma, a truth that admits no negotiation or exceptions in any corner of the known universe. It states, energy is neither created nor destroyed, only transformed. This means you live in a closed system. The total amount of energy in the universe is constant. You cannot make energy magically disappear just because it is uncomfortable, nor can you create it out of nothing. You can only change its state, its form, or its location. If you have a liter of gasoline and set it on fire, the gasoline does not disappear. It transforms into heat, light, gases, and carbon residue. The total sum of the energy released is exactly equal to the chemical energy contained in the liquid. Now apply this relentless law to your own biology. You are a thermodynamic system. Your libido, your jing, your sexual impulse is real energy. It is not an abstract idea. It is not a moral sin. It is a measurable current of bioelectricity and hormonal pressure. Every day your pelvic reactor generates an amount X of this energy. And this is where humanity has made its most catastrophic mistake, believing that desire can be destroyed. For centuries, moralistic religions, Victorian education, and social decency have taught us that if we feel a sexual impulse that is inappropriate or excessive, the correct thing to do is to suppress it. They tell us ignore it, cover it up, pray for it to go away, think of something else, be chaste. They sell us the idea that abstinence is simply doing nothing. But thermodynamics screams at us that doing nothing is impossible when energy is present. If you have a nuclear reactor generating heat and you close the outlet valve, sexual expression, without opening an upward valve, transmutation, the energy does not leave. The energy stays inside. And what does high-pressure energy trapped in a closed container do? It seeks an exit. And if it does not find one, it deforms the container. This is what we call the pathology of repression. Repression is not the absence of sex. Repression is sexual energy rotting. When you force your libido to stagnate in the basement because of shame, fear, or guilt, that energy does not stay still. It begins to become toxic. It begins to ferment. The original vibration of Eros is creation and connection, but when corrupted by stagnation, it inverts its polarity. Creation becomes destruction. Connection becomes aggression. Let's clinically analyze what happens to a human being who violates the first law by trying to destroy their sexual energy through repression. 1. Somatization, the attack on the body. The energy has to go somewhere. If it doesn't exit outward as pleasure or creativity, it turns inward against the tissue itself. Wilhelm Reich, the father of bioenergetics, discovered what he called the muscular armor. He observed that sexually repressed people developed chronic physical rigidity. Their jaws were clenched, their pelvises were frozen and hard as rocks, their backs were inflexible. That muscular tension is the actual physical effort the body has to make 24 hours a day, to hold down the energy so it doesn't escape. Imagine having to keep a beach ball submerged underwater with your hands. It requires constant effort. If you relax for a second, the ball jumps up. Repressed people are exhausted, not because they do too much, but because they spend $80% of their vital battery on keeping the sex ball underwater in their consciousness. Over time, this chronic tension cuts off blood flow and oxygenation to the organs. And that's where illness is born. Prostate cancer, uterine fibroids, ovarian cysts, psychological impotence. From the perspective of the thermodynamics of Eros, these are often the result of decades of stagnant nuclear energy that has started to burn the surrounding tissue through accumulated thermal radiation. The body attacks itself because it has an excess of energy it doesn't know how to use. 2. Neurosis and the shadow, the attack on the mind. If the energy fails to break the body, it will try to break the mind. Freud was right about this. What is repressed always returns, and it returns distorted. Sexual energy is aggressive by nature, in the sense that it seeks to penetrate, conquer, fuse. If you deny that healthy aggression, it turns into cruelty. Look at history. The most sexually repressed human groups have often been the most violent, the most inquisitorial, and the most sadistic. It is not a coincidence. It is physics. Sexual frustration is the fuel of war. When a man cannot penetrate a woman or the world with love and passion, he ends up wanting to penetrate it with bullets or with ideologies of hate. The energy needs impact. If it is not the impact of Eros, it will be the impact of Thanatos, death. On an individual level, this manifests as passive-aggressive behavior, chronic irritability, cynicism, and a dark sexual shadow. The celibate priest who abuses children, the puritanical politician who is discovered in an illegal orgy, the shy good boy who explodes in an act of domestic violence. None of them are inexplicable monsters. They are thermodynamic systems that failed. They tried to cover the volcano with a lid of moral cement, and the volcano inevitably burst through the weakest side of the mountain. 3. Anhedonia, the death of the spirit. This is perhaps the saddest consequence. To repress the sexual impulse, you have to numb your ability to feel. You have to turn down the overall volume of your nervous system, but you cannot numb selectively. You cannot say, I will turn off my sexual desire, but I will keep my joy for life. The master switch is on. If you turn off sex, you turn off life. Repressed people become grey. They lose the sparkle in their eyes. They lose the ability to enjoy food, music, and beauty. They become dry. They become bureaucrats of existence. They follow rules, but they have no pulse. They have succeeded in controlling their desire, yes, but the price has been to become functional zombies. This is the trap of the closed system. If you believe your only two options are A, being an uncontrolled animal, fission, cheap discharge, B, being a repressed saint, blockage, illness, then you are condemned. Both options lead to a loss of power. Option A empties you. Option B rots you. But the first law of thermodynamics has a second part, an escape clause that is the key to our liberation. Only transforms. The energy does not have to remain as genital desire. That is just its base form. It is its solid state, its ice state. But if you apply heat, consciousness, and change the pressure, the ice turns into water, and if you keep applying energy, the water turns into steam. It is still das ext, tu tutas, ext-tas. They are the same molecules. But now the steam can move a locomotive while the ice was only good for cooling a drink. Your mission is not to destroy desire. Your mission is not to not feel like it. To feel like it is to be alive. Your mission is to change the state of matter. Your mission is to take that dense, heavy, sticky vibration you feel in your groin and accelerate its frequency until it becomes light, expansive, and luminous in your brain. Repression is a dam that stops the river. Transmutation is a hydroelectric turbine that lets the river pass, but uses its force to turn on the lights of a city. The river continues to flow, the desire still exists, but it is no longer wasted or stagnant. It is used. In this first part, I want you to make peace with your heat. Stop judging it. Stop seeing your erection or your wetness as a problem to be solved, either by discharging or by hiding it. See it for what it is. Voltage. It is the universe handing you a blank check of pure energy. Are you going to tear up the check, repression? Are you going to spend it on candy, fission? Or are you going to invest it in your empire, fusion? In the second part, we will explore the physics of this transformation. How is lead turned into gold? What is the exact mechanism for changing the frequency of a biological wave? We will enter the laboratory of sublimation, the frequency shift and the alchemy of sublimation. If we accept that we cannot destroy the energy, the only way out is up. Freud called this process sublimation. In physics and chemistry, sublimation is the direct transition of a substance from the solid to the gaseous state without passing through the liquid state. It is a quantum leap in density. In the Thermodynamics of Eros, sublimation is the act of taking sexual energy, which seeks physical sensory gratification, and elevating it until it becomes psychic energy, which seeks creative or spiritual gratification. To understand how this works, imagine the spectrum of visible light. The color red has a low frequency, long, slow waves. The color violet has a high frequency, short, fast waves. They are the same light. They are photons. The only difference is the speed of vibration. Your sexual energy in the genitals is red light. It is dense, hot, slow, tied to survival and the earth. Your mental and spiritual energy in the brain is violet light. It is fast, cold, electrical, tied to vision and the divine. The problem is that most men and women have a broken transformer. They know how to operate in red sex. They know how to operate in violet, thinking, praying. But they don't know how to convert red into violet. They live disconnected. They have a basement full of fuel and a dark attic. The alchemy of transmutation is based on 3 principles of internal engineering: attention, breath, and intention. 1. The principle of attention. Where the mind goes, the energy goes. Sexual energy is sticky. It tends to stay where you put your attention. When you feel aroused, where does your mind automatically go? It goes to the fantasy. It goes to the image of the desired person. It goes to the sensation of friction in the genitals. By putting your attention there, you anchor the energy to the negative pole, down. You condemn it to remain in a solid state. The first step of sublimation is to withdraw attention from the object of desire. Stop thinking about the naked body that excites you. Stop thinking about the sensation in your penis or clitoris. Bring your attention inward and upward. Visualize the energy not as urge to have sex, but as a torrent of white or golden light that is trapped at your base. Look at it with your mind's eye. By shifting the focus from the external object, the person porn, to the internal phenomenon, the energy, you break the spell of discharge. It is no longer something you need to give to someone. It is something you have inside. 2. The chimney principle, the breath draft. Fire needs air to rise. In a chimney, hot air rises because there is a draft or current of air that pushes it upward. Your spine is the chimney. Your breath is the draft. Most people, when aroused, breathe shallowly, superficially, and pant, dog breathing. This keeps the energy trapped in the chest and pelvis. To sublimate, you need deep and slow breathing. You need to breathe as if you were sucking water through a straw running from your sacrum to your brain. Inhale slowly, imagining you are sucking the seminal sexual fluid from below, pulling it up the spine, vertebra by vertebra. Exhale slowly, imagining that energy expanding inside your brain, nourishing the glands. This mechanical action creates a pressure vacuum that literally sucks the jing upward. You change the hydrodynamics of the body. You reverse the flow of the waterfall. The principle of intention, the command order. Energy is obedient, but it needs a commander. If you don't give it an order, sexual energy will follow its default programming. Exit to reproduce. It is the biological program of the species. To hack that program, you need to impose your will. You have to give the energy a new purpose. When you feel the fire burning, instead of seeking relief, sit down to work on your project and say internally, I command this energy to become creativity. I command this fire to become wealth. I command this desire to become charisma. It is not magic, it is resource redirection. You are rewiring the circuit in real time. You are telling your nervous system, do not use this voltage to activate the pudendal nerves, ejaculation. Use this voltage to activate the prefrontal cortex, genius, and the reticular system, focus. How does sublimation feel? It is important that you recognize the sensation, because at first it is confusing. When you manage to transmute the energy, the feeling of genital heat. Pressure, bothersome erection, wetness disappears or decreases drastically. Many men get scared here. They think, I've lost the erection, I've lost the desire. No, you haven't lost it. You have moved it. Suddenly you feel crystalline mental clarity. You feel heat in your chest or face. You feel an urgency to do things. You get up, you walk fast, you speak with authority, you write furiously, you solve complex problems without fatigue. That strange motivation is your erection. It is your erection that has changed location. You now have a mental erection. Your brain is turgid with blood and electricity. You have turned lead into gold. The sacrifice of the beast. The first law of thermodynamics implies an exchange. To gain something, you must give up something of equal value. You cannot have the gold, genius, magnetism, spiritual power, and also keep the lead, immediate animal gratification, cheap relief, laziness. You have to sacrifice the lesser pleasure to obtain the greater pleasure. You have to be willing to feel the discomfort of the unresolved tension in the body and sustain it long enough for it to cook and rise. Nikola Tesla, Isaac Newton, Leonardo da Vinci, these men were not asexual. They were men with massive nuclear reactors who consciously chose not to open the valve below. They chose to live in high tension, and that tension illuminated the world. Do not be mistaken. This does not mean you should never have sex. Conscious sex, fusion sex with a partner, as we will see in Part 4, is another form of transmutation. But relief sex, I need to empty myself sex, that is the enemy of your greatness. That is the hole in your pocket where your gold coins fall out. The alchemist's practice, waste recycling. From today, monitor your energy. If you feel frustrated, angry, or lustful, celebrate. It means you have energy. The worst tragedy is not having bad impulses. It is having no impulses at all, depression, low energy. If you have dirty energy, lust, anger, do not try to throw it away. Do not repress it. Recycle it. Apply the technique. Withdraw attention. Breathe up the spine. Give it a command. Wash the coal until it turns into diamond. Energy is not lost. All the sexual energy you did not expel yesterday is the sparkle in your eyes today. All the gratification you postponed last week is the firmness in your voice today. All the porn you did not watch today is the steel discipline that allows you to train or work when others sleep. Nothing is wasted in the alchemist's universe. Everything adds up. Your body is the most perfect closed system ever designed. Learn to keep the door closed and the roof open. Let the pressure build your legend. Chapter 3. The first law of erotic thermodynamics. In classical physics, the first law of thermodynamics is an absolute dogma, a truth that admits no negotiation or exceptions in any corner of the known universe. It states, energy is neither created nor destroyed, only transformed. This means you live in a closed system. The total amount of energy in the universe is constant. You cannot make energy magically disappear just because it is uncomfortable, nor can you create it out of nothing. You can only change its state, its form, or its location. If you have a liter of gasoline and set it on fire, the gasoline does not disappear. It transforms into heat, light, gases, and carbon residue. The total sum of the energy released is exactly equal to the chemical energy contained in the liquid. Now apply this relentless law to your own biology. You are a thermodynamic system. Your libido, your jing, your sexual impulse is real energy. It is not an abstract idea. It is not a moral sin. It is a measurable current of bioelectricity and hormonal pressure. Every day your pelvic reactor generates an amount X of this energy. And this is where humanity has made its most catastrophic mistake, believing that desire can be destroyed. For centuries, moralistic religions, Victorian education, and social decency have taught us that if we feel a sexual impulse that is inappropriate or excessive, the correct thing to do is to suppress it. They tell us ignore it, cover it up, pray for it to go away, think of something else, be chaste. They sell us the idea that abstinence is simply doing nothing. But thermodynamics screams at us that doing nothing is impossible when energy is present. If you have a nuclear reactor generating heat and you close the outlet valve, sexual expression, Without opening an upward valve, transmutation, the energy does not leave. The energy stays inside. And what does high-pressure energy trapped in a closed container do? It seeks an exit. And if it does not find one, it deforms the container. This is what we call the pathology of repression. Repression is not the absence of sex. Repression is sexual energy rotting. When you force your libido to stagnate in the basement because of shame, fear, or guilt, that energy does not stay still. It begins to become toxic. It begins to ferment. The original vibration of Eros is creation and connection, but when corrupted by stagnation, it inverts its polarity. Creation becomes destruction. Connection becomes aggression. Let's clinically analyze what happens to a human being who violates the first law by trying to destroy their sexual energy through repression. 1. Somatization, the attack on the body. The energy has to go somewhere. If it doesn't exit outward as pleasure or creativity, it turns inward against the tissue itself. Wilhelm Reich, the father of bioenergetics, discovered what he called the muscular armor. He observed that sexually repressed people developed chronic physical rigidity. Their jaws were clenched, their pelvises were frozen and hard as rocks, their backs were inflexible. That muscular tension is the actual physical effort the body has to make 24 hours a day, to hold down the energy so it doesn't escape. Imagine having to keep a beach ball submerged underwater with your hands. It requires constant effort. If you relax for a second, the ball jumps up. Repressed people are exhausted, not because they do too much, but because they spend $80% of their vital battery on keeping the sex ball underwater in their consciousness. Over time, this chronic tension cuts off blood flow and oxygenation to the organs. And that's where illness is born. Prostate cancer, uterine fibroids, ovarian cysts, psychological impotence. From the perspective of the thermodynamics of Eros, these are often the result of decades of stagnant nuclear energy that has started to burn the surrounding tissue through accumulated thermal radiation. The body attacks itself because it has an excess of energy it doesn't know how to use. 2. Neurosis and the shadow, the attack on the mind. If the energy fails to break the body, it will try to break the mind. Freud was right about this. What is repressed always returns, and it returns distorted. Sexual energy is aggressive by nature, in the sense that it seeks to penetrate, conquer, fuse. If you deny that healthy aggression, it turns into cruelty. Look at history. The most sexually repressed human groups have often been the most violent, the most inquisitorial, and the most sadistic. It is not a coincidence. It is physics. Sexual frustration is the fuel of war. When a man cannot penetrate a woman or the world with love and passion, he ends up wanting to penetrate it with bullets or with ideologies of hate. The energy needs impact. If it is not the impact of Eros, it will be the impact of Thanatos, death. On an individual level, this manifests as passive-aggressive behavior, chronic irritability, cynicism, and a dark sexual shadow. The celibate priest who abuses children, the puritanical politician who is discovered in an illegal orgy, the shy good boy who explodes in an act of domestic violence. None of them are inexplicable monsters. They are thermodynamic systems that failed. They tried to cover the volcano with a lid of moral cement, and the volcano inevitably burst through the weakest side of the mountain. 3. Anhedonia, the death of the spirit. This is perhaps the saddest consequence. To repress the sexual impulse, you have to numb your ability to feel. You have to turn down the overall volume of your nervous system, but you cannot numb selectively. You cannot say, I will turn off my sexual desire, but I will keep my joy for life. The master switch is on. If you turn off sex, you turn off life. Repressed people become grey. They lose the sparkle in their eyes. They lose the ability to enjoy food, music, and beauty. They become dry. They become bureaucrats of existence. They follow rules, but they have no pulse. They have succeeded in controlling their desire, yes, but the price has been to become functional zombies. This is the trap of the closed system. If you believe your only two options are A, being an uncontrolled animal, fission, cheap discharge, B, being a repressed saint, blockage, illness, then you are condemned. Both options lead to a loss of power. Option A empties you, option B rots you. But the first law of thermodynamics has a second part, an escape clause that is the key to our liberation. Only transforms. The energy does not have to remain as genital desire. That is just its base form. It is its solid state, its ice state. But if you apply heat, consciousness, and change the pressure, the ice turns into water, and if you keep applying energy, the water turns into steam. It is still das ext, two tutas, ext-tas. They are the same molecules. But now the steam can move a locomotive while the ice was only good for cooling a drink. Your mission is not to destroy desire. Your mission is not to not feel like it. To feel like it is to be alive. Your mission is to change the state of matter. Your mission is to take that dense, heavy, sticky vibration you feel in your groin and accelerate its frequency until it becomes light, expansive, and luminous in your brain. Repression is a dam that stops the river. Transmutation is a hydroelectric turbine that lets the river pass, but uses its force to turn on the lights of a city. The river continues to flow, the desire still exists, but it is no longer wasted or stagnant. It is used. In this first part, I want you to make peace with your heat. Stop judging it. Stop seeing your erection or your wetness as a problem to be solved, either by discharging or by hiding it. See it for what it is. Voltage. It is the universe handing you a blank check of pure energy. Are you going to tear up the check, repression? Are you going to spend it on candy, fission? Or are you going to invest it in your empire, fusion? In the second part, we will explore the physics of this transformation. How is lead turned into gold? What is the exact mechanism for changing the frequency of a biological wave? We will enter the laboratory of sublimation, the frequency shift and the alchemy of sublimation. If we accept that we cannot destroy the energy, the only way out is up. Freud called this process sublimation. In physics and chemistry, sublimation is the direct transition of a substance from the solid to the gaseous state, without passing through the liquid state. It is a quantum leap in density. In the Thermodynamics of Eros, sublimation is the act of taking sexual energy, which seeks physical sensory gratification, and elevating it until it becomes psychic energy, which seeks creative or spiritual gratification. To understand how this works, imagine the spectrum of visible light. The color red has a low frequency, long, slow waves. The color violet has a high frequency, short, fast waves. They are the same light. They are photons. The only difference is the speed of vibration. Your sexual energy in the genitals is red light. It is dense, hot, slow, tied to survival and the earth. Your mental and spiritual energy in the brain is violet light. It is fast, cold, electrical, tied to vision and the divine. The problem is that most men and women have a broken transformer. They know how to operate in red sex. They know how to operate in violet, thinking, praying. But they don't know how to convert red into violet. They live disconnected. They have a basement full of fuel and a dark attic. The alchemy of transmutation is based on 3 principles of internal engineering: attention, breath, and intention. 1. The principle of attention. Where the mind goes, the energy goes. Sexual energy is sticky. It tends to stay where you put your attention. When you feel aroused, where does your mind automatically go? It goes to the fantasy. It goes to the image of the desired person. It goes to the sensation of friction in the genitals. By putting your attention there, you anchor the energy to the negative pole, down. You condemn it to remain in a solid state. The first step of sublimation is to withdraw attention from the object of desire. Stop thinking about the naked body that excites you. Stop thinking about the sensation in your penis or clitoris. Bring your attention inward and upward. Visualize the energy not as urge to have sex, but as a torrent of white or golden light that is trapped at your base. Look at it with your mind's eye. By shifting the focus from the external object, the person porn, to the internal phenomenon, the energy, you break the spell of discharge. It is no longer something you need to give to someone. It is something you have inside. 2. The chimney principle, the breath draft. Fire needs air to rise. In a chimney, hot air rises because there is a draft or current of air that pushes it upward. Your spine is the chimney. Your breath is the draft. Most people, when aroused, breathe shallowly, superficially, and pant, dog breathing. This keeps the energy trapped in the chest and pelvis. To sublimate, you need deep and slow breathing. You need to breathe as if you were sucking water through a straw running from your sacrum to your brain. Inhale slowly, imagining you are sucking the seminal sexual fluid from below, pulling it up the spine, vertebra by vertebra. Exhale slowly, imagining that energy expanding inside your brain, nourishing the glands. This mechanical action creates a pressure vacuum that literally sucks the jing upward. You change the hydrodynamics of the body. You reverse the flow of the waterfall. The principle of intention, the command order. Energy is obedient, but it needs a commander. If you don't give it an order, sexual energy will follow its default programming. Exit to reproduce. It is the biological program of the species. To hack that program, you need to impose your will. You have to give the energy a new purpose. When you feel the fire burning, instead of seeking relief, sit down to work on your project and say internally, I command this energy to become creativity. I command this fire to become wealth. I command this desire to become charisma. It is not magic, it is resource redirection. You are rewiring the circuit in real time. You are telling your nervous system, do not use this voltage to activate the pudendal nerves, ejaculation. Use this voltage to activate the prefrontal cortex, genius, and the reticular system, focus. How does sublimation feel? It is important that you recognize the sensation, because at first it is confusing. When you manage to transmute the energy, the feeling of genital heat, pressure, bothersome erection, wetness, disappears or decreases drastically. Many men get scared here. They think, I've lost the erection, I've lost the desire. No, you haven't lost it. You have moved it. Suddenly you feel crystalline mental clarity. You feel heat in your chest or face. You feel an urgency to do things. You get up, you walk fast, you speak with authority, you write furiously, you solve complex problems without fatigue. That strange motivation is your erection. It is your erection that has changed location. You now have a mental erection. Your brain is turgid with blood and electricity. You have turned lead into gold. The sacrifice of the beast. The first law of thermodynamics implies an exchange. To gain something, you must give up something of equal value. You cannot have the gold, genius, magnetism, spiritual power, and also keep the lead, immediate animal gratification, cheap relief, laziness. You have to sacrifice the lesser pleasure to obtain the greater pleasure. You have to be willing to feel the discomfort of the unresolved tension in the body and sustain it long enough for it to cook and rise. Nikola Tesla, Isaac Newton, Leonardo da Vinci, these men were not asexual. They were men with massive nuclear reactors who consciously chose not to open the valve below. They chose to live in high tension, and that tension illuminated the world. Do not be mistaken. This does not mean you should never have sex. Conscious sex, fusion sex with a partner, as we will see in Part 4, is another form of transmutation. But relief sex, I need to empty myself sex, that is the enemy of your greatness. That is the hole in your pocket where your gold coins fall out. The alchemist's practice, waste recycling. From today, monitor your energy. If you feel frustrated, angry, or lustful, celebrate. It means you have energy. The worst tragedy is not having bad impulses. It is having no impulses at all, depression, low energy. If you have dirty energy, lust, anger, do not try to throw it away. Do not repress it. Recycle it. Apply the technique. Withdraw attention. Breathe up the spine. Give it a command. Wash the coal until it turns into diamond. Energy is not lost. All the sexual energy you did not expel yesterday is the sparkle in your eyes today. All the gratification you postponed last week is the firmness in your voice today. All the porn you did not watch today is the steel discipline that allows you to train or work when others sleep. Nothing is wasted in the alchemist's universe. Everything adds up. Your body is the most perfect closed system ever designed. Learn to keep the door closed and the roof open. Let the pressure build your legend. Chapter 4. The Spine as Particle Accelerator. Wherever you look in the history of human spirituality, you always find the same symbol, the vertical axis, the tree of life in the Kabbalah, Mount Meru in Hinduism, the Norse Yggdrasil, the caduceus of Hermes with its two intertwined serpents around a rod, the staff of the patriarchs. We have been told they are mythological symbols. The Thermodynamics of Eros tells you they are anatomical blueprints. They all speak of the same thing, your spinal column. For conventional medicine, the spine is a structural post. It is a set of 33 stacked vertebrae whose function is to keep you upright, protect the cord, and allow muscle attachment. They see it as a biological tent pole. But for the high-energy engineer, the spine is something infinitely more complex and dangerous. The spine is a linear particle accelerator. It is a superconducting cable. To understand why, we must look inside the bone. Inside the vertebral canal runs the spinal cord, which is a direct extension of the brain. But the cord is not dry. It floats. It is bathed in a transparent, saline, and highly conductive liquid called cerebrospinal fluid, CSF. This fluid is not normal water. It is a perfect electrolyte. It is saturated with mineral salts, proteins, and, crucially, piezoelectric crystals in solution. It is the oil of Christ. Christos in Greek means anointed with oil. It is the sacred fluid. When you generate sexual energy in the sacrum, the reactor, you are creating a high-frequency vibration. If that vibration stays in the soft tissues of the pelvis, it feels like heat. But if you manage to get that vibration into the central channel, the dural tube, the energy begins to interact with the cerebrospinal fluid. And here physical magic happens. The CSF acts as a conductive medium. The sexual energy ionizes the fluid. It charges it electrically. And like any charged fluid inside a closed tube, if you apply pressure and heat from below, the fluid seeks to rise. It seeks the path of least resistance to the positive pole, the brain. However, most human beings have a broken accelerator. The cable is cut or blocked. Why? Because the spinal column is not a smooth tube in most people. It is a path of obstacles. Emotional stress, physical traumas, poor posture, and chronic fear create knots of resistance along the spine. In yoga, they are called granthis. In thermodynamics, we call them impedance points. Let's analyze the three main blockages that prevent your sexual energy from rising and force you to ejaculate it to relieve the pressure. The lumbar block, the gate of life, located in the lower back behind the navel, Ming Men. It is the area of fear and financial, vital insecurity. When you are afraid, you tense the kidneys and lower back. This tension closes the tube. When sexual energy rises from the sacrum, it crashes against this lumbar wall. It cannot pass. Pressure increases. And since it cannot rise, it bounces down and demands to exit through the genitals. Many men ejaculate quickly not because they have too much energy, but because their back is blocked and the energy has nowhere to go but out. The dorsal block, the heart wall, located between the shoulder blades behind the heart. It is the area of emotional protection. If you have been hurt, if you have closed your heart, you hunch your shoulders forward, kyphosis. This curve tenses the spinal cord. It strangles the flow. If the energy manages to pass the lower back, it dies here. It dissipates in the form of emotional anxiety or upper back pain. It does not reach the head. The cervical block, the jade gate, located at the base of the skull, the occiput. It is the area of intellectual control and ego, the bottleneck. We live with our heads forward, looking at screens. This creates brutal compression in the atlas and axis. If the sacred fluid manages to rise up to here, it cannot enter the brain. It gets trapped in the neck, creating tension, migraines, and bruxism. The alchemist's job is to rectify the cable. For the spine to function as a superconductor, it must be aligned. A bent cable offers resistance. Resistance generates heat, inflammation, pain, and signal loss. A straight cable offers zero resistance. The signal travels cool and fast. Physical posture is, therefore, a spiritual technology. Sitting straight is not a Victorian etiquette rule. It is an engineering requirement. When you align the sacrum, lower back, mid-back, and skull in a perfect vertical line, as if a thread were pulling your crown to the sky, you open the central channel, sushumna. You decompress the vertebrae. You allow the cerebrospinal fluid to flow freely. At that moment, your body stops being a body and becomes an antenna. But there is a real danger here. If you try to force a massive amount of nuclear energy, transmuted sexuality, through a dirty, oxidized and blocked cable, you will burn out the system. This is known as the Kundalini syndrome. People who do intense breathing practices or semen retention without first having cleansed their physical and emotional blockages. The energy rises, hits the blockage, say in the heart, and since it cannot pass, it begins to fry the nerves in that area. Symptoms: extreme heat, uncontrollable shaking, temporary psychosis, manic insomnia, electrical pains. They put 10,000 volts into a 110-volt wire. That is why the Thermodynamics of Eros insists on preparation of the terrain. Before turning the reactor to maximum power, you have to clean the pipes. Spinal movement, like cat-cow in yoga or spinal waves, is not exercise. It is infrastructure maintenance. You are breaking up calcifications. You are hydrating the discs. You are ensuring that when the fire rises, the path is clear. Imagine your spine as a neon tube. In its normal state, the gas inside the tube is inert. It is dark. When you apply a high voltage from the ends, sacrum and brain, the gas gets excited, turns into plasma, and lights up. You are that neon tube. Sexual energy is the voltage that lights you up. But if the glass of the tube is broken, blockages, the gas escapes and there is no light. The goal of part 2 of this chapter is to teach you how to create the closed circuit. Because energy cannot rise and stay up indefinitely, that would cause a stroke or pressure migraine. The energy must circulate. It must rise up the back, fire yang, and flow down the front, water yin. It must recycle itself. The Taoists called this the microcosmic orbit. It is the biological particle accelerator. It is the superconducting ring where energy can spin at near-light speeds, accumulating inertia, power, and magnetism without burning out the body. It is the way to have a perpetual orgasm that does not occur in the genitals, but in every centimeter of your nervous system. Get ready. We are going to connect the wires, the orbit protocol and the tongue switch. If the spine is the linear accelerator, the microcosmic orbit is the cyclotron, the circular accelerator. It is the fundamental practice of Taoist sexual alchemy and the operational basis of the thermodynamics of Eros. Without this technique, transmutation is dangerous or impossible. If you only send energy up to the brain and leave it there, you will become irritable, you will have headaches, you will lose sleep, and you will become a hothead, literally and metaphorically. The energy must come down to cool off, nourish the organs, and return to the base to be recharged. The circuit consists of 2 main channels, meridians, that act as high-voltage wires. The governing channel, Dopamine, rises from the perineum, passes through the sacrum, runs up the entire spine, passes over the nape of the neck, rises over the crown, and ends at the upper palate, behind the teeth. It is the yang channel. It is fire. It carries hot, raw energy upward. The conception channel, Renmai, starts at the tip of the tongue, runs down the throat, sternum, navel, and ends at the perineum. It is the yin channel. It is water. It cools, condenses, and stores the energy. Observe that there is a physical gap between the end of the upward channel, palate, and the start of the downward channel, tongue. It is like an open light switch. The circuit is cut by default. To close the circuit and allow the current to flow, you must perform the single most important physical action of internal alchemy, connecting the tongue to the palate. The ancients called it the magpie bridge, or the celestial connection. By placing the tip of your tongue against the palate, just behind the teeth or on the soft spot further back, you physically close the switch. You connect the positive wire with the negative wire, and the light comes on. The engineering protocol, how to move the voltage. Do not read this as theory. Read it as flight instructions. This process is best done sitting with a straight back, the tube aligned. Phase 1. Pressure generation. The reactor. To move energy, you first have to have energy. You can do this when you feel natural sexual arousal, or you can generate it through breathing or contraction. Gently contract the pelvic floor, the PC muscle, as if cutting off urination. This is the sacral pump. Visualize a ball of red light or liquid fire in your perineum between the genitals and the anus. Feel the heat. Increase the intensity. Do not let it disperse. Condense it. Phase 2. The ascent, the governing channel. Now use your intention and your breath. Inhale deeply. As you inhale, imagine you have a straw inside your spine. Suck that red ball upward from the perineum. Visualize it rising. It passes the coccyx. It passes the sacrum. It crosses the gate of life, lower back. It rises between the shoulder blades. It rises up the neck, jade gate. It reaches the crown, the top of the head, and it flows down to the third eye, brow center. Do not think about it. Feel it. You may feel a tingling, a real heat rising up your back, or even a physical vibration. It is the jing turning into electricity. Phase 3. The bridge, the commutation. Hold the energy in the head for a moment. Feel your brain light up. Feel the mental expansion. Now press the tongue to the palate. This is the critical moment. Visualize the energy passing from your brain to your tongue. It feels like an electric nectar, a cool, sweet liquid flowing down. The energy changes quality. It stops being fire, exciting, anxious, and becomes wind-water, nourishing, calming. Phase 4. The descent, the conception channel. Exhale slowly. Accompany the energy downward through the front of the body. It flows down the throat, healing the thyroid and voice. It flows down past the heart, cooling fiery emotions. It flows down past the solar plexus, giving digestive power. And it reaches the lower Dan Tien, the elixir field, located about 3 fingers below the navel in the center of the abdomen. Phase 5. Storage, the battery. Do not return the energy to the genitals immediately. Store it in the Dan Tien, navel. Visualize the energy entering a shining pearl in your belly and condensing there. This is your energy bank. If you return it to the genitals, you will feel hot again and want to ejaculate. If you store it in the navel, it turns into general vitality, health, and charisma. Repeat the cycle. Up the back, inhale. Down the front, exhale. Spin the wheel. The physics of sensation. How do you know if you are doing it right? At first, it is just imagination. That is fine. Energy follows thought. Yi guides qi. But with practice, perhaps weeks, perhaps months, the sensation becomes undeniably physical. You will feel your spine vibrating like a high-voltage cable. You will feel drops of cool liquid falling down your throat, amrita or nectar. And most importantly, the ejaculatory urge disappears. That desperate pressure in the genitals that was shouting, "Empty me," disappears. Why? Because you have relieved the pressure, but not outward. You have relieved it upward. You have decompressed the pelvic reactor by distributing the charge throughout the entire network. You no longer have blue balls. You have a golden body. You feel full, potent, vibrant, yet peaceful. It is the state of high voltage, low resistance. The short-circuit danger. A safety warning from the operations manual. If you do this and you feel a headache, pressure in your eyes, or ringing in your ears, it means you have sent energy up but have not brought it down. You have jammed the pipe in your head. Solution: stop. Put your hands on your navel. Rub your belly. Mentally visualize all the energy flowing down to your feet and into the earth. Eat something heavy, meat, roots. Walk barefoot. Never end an orbit session with energy in your head. Always, always, always store it in your belly. The brain is a delicate light bulb. The belly is a robust battery. Excess voltage melts the light bulb, but charges the battery. The real-life application. What is the use of being a particle accelerator? It is not for sitting and meditating in a cave. It is for life. When you are in a business meeting and you need to convince someone, activate the orbit. Raise your sexual energy. Pass it through the brain to give it intelligence. Bring it down through the throat to give power to your voice. And project it. Your voice will have a weight and a resonance that people will feel in their guts. That is charisma. Charisma is sublimated sexual energy. When you are creating art, activate the orbit. When you are healing from an illness, direct that golden flow to the sick area. You are using your own energetic stem cells to repair the tissue. You have converted your body into a perpetual motion machine. You no longer depend on external stimuli. You generate below, refine above, store in the center. You are autonomous. You are... Chapter 5. The Sacrocranial Pump. Up until now, we have talked about electricity, voltage, and invisible currents. But you are not an ethereal being. You are humid, dense, heavy biology. For the transformation to occur on this plane of reality, the energy must have a material vehicle. It must be embodied in a substance. And that substance exists. It is the most precious, mysterious, and protected fluid in the human body. It is not blood. It is not semen. It is the cerebrospinal fluid, CSF. Modern medicine treats it as a simple shock absorber, a saline water airbag that prevents your brain from hitting the skull and transports some basic nutrients. But the Thermodynamics of Eros retrieves the knowledge of the ancient mystery schools, which called it by reverent names: the Christos, from the Greek Christos, oil; the Amrita, nectar of immortality; the manna, or drinkable gold. They knew that this liquid is not just water. It is a crystalline consciousness storage medium. It is the blood of the spirit. To understand your body as a machine of ascension, we must analyze the life cycle of this sacred fluid. It all begins in the center of your brain, in a structure called the claustrum. The claustrum secretes this sacred oil. This fluid descends, drop by drop, through the brainstem, runs down the spinal cord, and reaches the base, the sacrum bone. In esoteric anatomy, this is the descent of the soul into matter. The divine fluid descends from heaven, cranium, to earth, pelvis. Upon reaching the bottom, it mixes with the sexual energies, with the jing, with the raw vital force of survival and reproduction. And here is where humanity divides into two paths: the path of death, waste. If you live governed by unconscious lust, fission, and discharge, that sacred fluid, once it has descended, is expelled. It is lost in ejaculation or consumed in the heat of low emotions, anger, fear, stress. The oil is burned or spilled. The brain is left dry. The pineal gland calcifies due to lack of nutrition. The human being ages and dies without having completed the cycle. The path of life, regeneration. If you practice fusion and the thermodynamics of Eros, your goal is to make that oil, now charged with the nuclear potency of the sacrum, ascend again. You must conquer gravity. You must make the river flow upward. You must return the tithe to the brain. But how does a liquid rise against gravity inside a closed tube? It needs a pump. And you have a hydraulic pump designed specifically for this task. It is called the Cranio-Sacral system. For a long time, medicine believed that the cranial bones were fused and fixed in adults. It was Dr. William Sutherland, at the beginning of the 20th century, who discovered that the cranium breathes. The sutures of the cranium have a microscopic movement of expansion and contraction. And miraculously, the sacrum bone at the base of the spine has the same movement, perfectly synchronized with the cranium. When the cranium widens, the sacrum moves. When the cranium narrows, the sacrum returns. They are connected by the dural tube, the meninges, an impermeable membrane that envelops the cord and contains the CSF. Imagine a closed hydraulic system, a long tube with a balloon at each end. If you squeeze the bottom balloon, sacrum, the liquid rises and expands the top balloon, cranium. If you squeeze the top balloon, the liquid descends. This is the mechanism of the sacrocranial pump. Your body is constantly pumping this sacred oil day and night. It is the cranial rhythmic impulse. But in most people, due to stress, poor posture, and chronic tension, the pump operates at 5,000% of its capacity. The sacrum is rigid, pelvic block. The cranium is compressed, cervical tension. The dural tube is twisted, scoliosis or poor posture. The fluid barely moves. It stagnates. And as we saw with water, stagnant fluid is dead fluid. The sacred oil turns rancid at the base of the spine. It doesn't rise, it doesn't illuminate. The job of the engineer of Eros is to repair and activate the pump. It is not just about visualizing light rising, as in the previous chapter. That moves electricity. Now we need to move matter. We need to apply hydrostatic pressure. We need to use the muscles, bones, and breath to create a suction vacuum so powerful that it pulls the dense fluid from the sacrum and shoots it toward the brain like a geyser. Why is it vital that this physical fluid reaches the brain? Because the brain is thirsty. The master glands, the pineal and the pituitary, await this nourishment. When the CSF, charged with sexual energy, hormones, minerals, electricity, bathes the third ventricle of the brain and touches these glands, a chemical reaction occurs. It is the chemical wedding. The pineal gland, the father, electric masculine, and the pituitary, the mother, magnetic feminine, activate in unison. They secrete substances not normally present in the blood. Pinoline, DMT, massive doses of oxytocin. It is the nectar. The Bible calls it a land flowing with milk and honey. The milk and honey are alchemical references to the secretions of the pituitary and pineal when stimulated by the ascending oil. This process is not a spiritual metaphor. It is advanced physiology. It is the reason why great geniuses have different brains. They were not born that way. They made themselves that way. They have managed to keep their brains bathed in this superconducting fluid. They have recycled their own essence. But there is a formidable obstacle. The spinal column has 33 vertebrae, counting the fused coccyx and sacrum. In Masonic and Christian symbolism, the number 33 is key. Jesus dies and resurrects at 33 years old. There are 33 degrees in Masonry. Why? Because the oil must climb the 33 steps of the column to reach heaven, the cranium. And on each step there are traps. There are nerves exiting to the organs that can steal or dissipate energy if you don't have enough pressure. Gravity pulls down, entropy pulls down, lust pulls down. Raising the oil requires a titanic effort against animal nature. It requires heat, it requires compression. In this first part, I want you to feel the physical reality of this system. You are not a bag of flesh, you are a vertical alembic. Your secret biological purpose is distillation. You take the dense red blood, filter it in the sacrum to create sexual energy, and then distill that sexual energy, raising it through the tube, refining it vertebra by vertebra, until it turns into golden vapor in the brain. That vapor condenses and falls as a shower of blessing over your entire nervous system. That is the cycle of perpetual regeneration. But if the pump is broken, the alembic does not work. The liquid remains below, fermenting, causing pressure in the prostate or uterus, creating sexual obsessions, seeking to exit at any cost. I need to have sex, says the animal brain. You need to pump, corrects the divine brain. That urgency you feel is not a need for emptying. It is a need for circulation. Your body is screaming at you that the bottom tank is full and the top tank is empty. Do not spill the fuel. Turn on the pump. In the second part, I will teach you how to operate the machinery. We will learn to use the bandhas, muscular hydraulic locks, and spinal breathing to generate the necessary pressure. We will learn how to do the big draw. Get ready to sweat. This is not passive meditation. This is internal manual labor. The bandhas, the vacuum, and the big draw. If the spine is the tube and the sacrum is the reservoir, the bandhas are the valves and pistons. Bandha in Sanskrit means lock or key. They are specific muscular contractions designed to seal certain areas of the body and prevent energy and fluid from escaping or flowing backward. Without bandhas, trying to raise energy is like trying to inflate a flat tire. No matter how much you blow, the air escapes. You need air tightness. You need to create a high-pressure system. To operate the sacrocranial pump, you need to master 3 main valves. These are the physical tools of the engineer of Eros. 1. Mula bandha, the admission valve, the lower piston. This is the root lock. It involves the contraction of the perineum, the pubococcygeus muscle, and the anal sphincter. But it is not just squeezing the butt. It is an internal and upward contraction. Imagine you want to suck water inward from the anus and genitals into the body. Hydraulic function. When you apply Mula bandha, you are physically pressing the sacrum. You are squeezing the bottom balloon. This forces the cerebrospinal fluid out of the sacral reservoir and into the central channel of the spine. Additionally, it prevents ejaculation. It closes the lower exit door. It is the floor you push off to propel yourself upward. 2. Uddiyana bandha, the suction mechanism, the vacuum. This is the abdominal lock. It is performed by exhaling all the air and then, without inhaling in apnea, sucking the abdomen inward and upward, pulling it up under the ribs. Hydraulic function. This creates negative pressure vacuum in the thoracic cavity and the spinal canal. It acts like a giant syringe. If you are pushing below, Mula Bandha, and in the middle, Uddiyana, you are sucking, the fluid shoots upward at high speed. It is the system's turbo. Jalandhara Bandha, the retention valve, the upper seal. This is the throat lock. It is performed by lowering the chin to the chest and lengthening the back of the neck. Hydraulic function. This stretches the spinal cord and the dural tube in the cervical area where blockages often occur. It prevents the energy from rising too quickly and dissipating through the ears or eyes, burning fuses. And crucially, it traps the energy in the brain once it has risen, preventing it from flowing back down immediately. It creates a pressure cooker inside the cranium to cook the pineal gland. The Big Draw Protocol. This is the supreme technique of physical transmutation. It is intense. It can cause heat, sweat, and, if done correctly, immediate altered states of consciousness. Use it when your tank is full, high sexual arousal, and you want to move that charge to the brain. Step 1. Charge and preparation. Sit with your back straight. Generate the energy, if you don't have it already. Feel the heat in the sacrum. Take a few deep breaths to oxygenate the blood. Fire needs oxygen. Step 2. The suction inhalation. Inhale slowly and deeply through the nose. As you inhale, gradually apply Mula Bandha. Contract the pelvic floor. Visualize and feel that you are pushing the fluid upward from the coccyx. Imagine your spine is a thermometer and the red mercury is rising. Accompany the ascent with muscular tension. Lightly tense your legs and glutes for support. Step 3. The pressurization, full apnea. When your lungs are full, do not exhale. Retain the air. Now, intensify Mula Bandha. Squeeze harder below. Apply Jalandhara Bandha. Lower the chin to the chest. You are compressing the air and energy inside your torso. Now do something counterintuitive. Try to exhale, but without letting the air out. Push with the diaphragm down and with the pelvic floor up. You are maximally increasing the intra-abdominal and intrathecal inside the spine pressure. Visualize the fluid being injected under pressure into the brain. Direct your eyes, closed, to the point between the eyebrows, third eye. Look up, feel the pressure in your head. You may feel a buzzing, a light, a strong heartbeat. It is the oil hitting the piezoelectric crystals of the pineal gland. The crystals, being compressed by the fluid, release photons. Light. Hold for as long as you comfortably can, 10 to 20 seconds. Feel the heat. You are melting the lead. Step 4. The release and distribution. When you can't hold any longer, lift your head. Exhale gently through the mouth or nose, very slowly. Slowly release Mula Bandha. Feel the cascade. Feel the energy that was compressed in the brain now spilling, soft, liquid and golden, bathing your entire body. It is the nectar. Stay still. Enjoy the natural high. Your brain is now saturated with endogenous, not cheap, dopamine, anandamide and oxytocin. You feel expanded. You feel genius. You feel God in your body. Hydraulic safety warnings. Do not force. If you feel an acute headache, stop. It means the channels are dirty. Go back to the previous chapter and do more spine cleaning and flexibility work. Do not do it on a full stomach. You need space for the diaphragm to move. Beware of hypertension. If you have high blood pressure, do the retention very gently without forcing the pressure in the head. The physiology of enlightenment. What have you just done? You have hacked your own biology. You have used fluid mechanics to force an evolution that, naturally, would take eons. You have fed your higher glands the food they were desperately waiting for. When you do this regularly, the physical structure of your brain changes. The ventricular system dilates and becomes more permeable. Neuronal conductivity increases. You start operating in gamma waves, high processing, habitually. You are no longer a mammal seeking to reproduce. You are an electromagnetic entity, self-aware that uses its biology to explore the cosmos. But there is a final detail, the taste. Yogic texts say that when the amrita falls from the brain to the throat, it has a sweet taste. Physiologically, this could be the secretion of certain hormones and enzymes into the saliva and pharynx. If you ever, after an intense practice or a moment of great love ecstasy, feel a sweet or metallic electric taste in your mouth, celebrate it. The distillation has been a success. You have tasted your own medicine. The challenge of gravity. Gravity always pulls down. The world always pulls down, toward materialism, toward easy lust. Pumping upward is an act of rebellion. It is an act of will. It requires daily effort. The pump rusts if unused, but the reward is total freedom. You stop being a slave to your impulses. Your impulses become your fuel. You no longer say, "I have the urge, what a problem." You say, "I have pressure. I'm going to raise it." Chapter 6: Internal Polarity. If you analyze the cultural narrative about love and sexuality, you will find a foundational lie that has caused more suffering, dependence, and energetic weakness than any other idea in human history. It is the myth of the soulmate, media naranja. The idea that you are an incomplete being, that you are a half, that you wander the world like a plug desperately looking for an outlet, or like a key looking for a lock. We have been sold the idea that sexual electricity and ecstasy can only happen in the encounter between two, that you need an other to turn you on, that you need an external opposite pole to feel the spark of life. The Thermodynamics of Eros comes to tell you that this is elementary school physics. It is an obsolete model of parasitic dependence. If you need another to complete your circuit, you are a broken battery. You are an unstable system. The true master of energy does not seek their other half. The master is already the entire universe compressed in one skin. The master has discovered the secret of internal polarity. To understand this, we must return to the basic principles of electricity. For an electric current to exist, for there to be a spark, light, and movement, you need a potential difference. You need two poles. The anode, positive plus, the emitting, active, projective pole. In mystical symbology, it is the masculine principle, the sun, the sky, the yang, Shiva. The cathode, negative. The receptive, magnetic, attractive pole. It is the feminine principle, the moon, the earth, the yin, Shakti. Electricity is not the thing. Electricity is the movement that occurs when the positive pole seeks the negative pole to balance itself. The tension between the two creates the voltaic arc. The spark of life is that arc. Biology has designed us with an apparent trap. If you have a man's body, your predominant external polarity is positive, yang. You have a penis, projective. If you have a woman's body, your predominant external polarity is negative, yin. You have a vagina, receptive. That is why the easiest and laziest way to generate electricity is to join a man's body with a woman's. Positive touches, negative, zap, spark, attraction, sex, relief. It is the static electricity of friction. It is easy, it is fast, but it is external. It depends entirely on the presence of the other. If the other leaves, your light goes out. If the other changes, your voltage drops. You become an energy beggar, always looking for someone to act as your grounding wire or battery. But a higher level of engineering exists, the internal alternating current. The ancient alchemists knew that even though your body has a biological gender, your energetic structure is androgynous. You are a complete system. You have heaven and earth within you. You have an anode and a cathode installed at the factory. The problem is that your wires are cut. Let's analyze the anatomy of your internal polarity. 1. The vertical axis, heaven-earth. O upper pole, head-brain. This is your positive plus pole. It is electric, cool, mental, luminous. It is the seat of the witness consciousness, Shiva. Its nature is stillness and vision. Do lower pole, pelvis or genitals. This is your negative Tyano pole. It is magnetic, hot, emotional, dark, in the good sense of womb, earth. It is the seat of vital energy, Shakti. Its nature is movement and desire. Most people are internally disconnected. Intellectuals live in the head, pure positive pole, and have a dead or repressed pelvis. They are cold, dry, passionless. They are batteries that only have the plus terminal. They cannot generate real work. Hedonists live in the pelvis, pure negative pole, and have a dark head. They are hot, impulsive, chaotic. They are batteries that only have the terminal. They discharge themselves. The internal voltaic arc occurs when you connect the head with the pelvis, when you allow the cool consciousness of the brain to descend to observe the hot fire of the genitals, and you allow the fire of the genitals to rise to warm the brain. When these two poles look at each other and connect through the spine, the cable, an internal lightning bolt is generated. That lightning bolt is Kundalini. That lightning bolt is transmuted Eros. You do not need anyone else to feel this. In fact, to feel it at its maximum power, you often need to be alone without the interference of another person's magnetic field. 2. The horizontal axis, right-left. Your brain and body are crossed. Full right side of the body, Pingala, controlled by the left hemisphere. It is the solar, masculine, rational, active, hot channel. O left side of the body, Ida, controlled by the right hemisphere. It is the lunar, feminine, intuitive, passive, cool channel. The average human is asymmetrical. They are either too rational and aggressive, excess solar, or too emotional and passive, excess lunar. When a human being balances their hemispheres through alternate breathing, meditation, or conscious sexual practice, they unite the sun and the moon within themselves. The internal eclipse occurs, and in the eclipse, the crown is revealed. The goal of the thermodynamics of Eros is energetic self-sufficiency. This does not mean that you isolate yourself or never have a partner. It means that you stop seeking a partner from need, lack, and start seeking one from resonance, abundance. If you are already a complete circuit, if you already generate your own electricity, when you meet another complete circuit, you do not complete each other. You empower each other. Two suns shining together generate exponentially greater light than one light bulb trying to plug into another. But to achieve this, you must face solitude. You must stop using other people or porn or fantasy as crutches to feel alive. You must learn to arouse yourself with your own energy. You must learn to make love to yourself, not as an act of consolation. I don't have anyone, so I'll touch myself, but as an act of high magic. It is the ritual of the Hieros Gamos, sacred marriage, in solitude. In this first part, I ask you to reevaluate your charge state. Do you feel turned off when you don't have someone who desires or touches you? Do you feel neutral or bored when you are alone? If so, your internal poles are sulfated. They are disconnected. Your brain does not speak to your sex. Your heart does not speak to your instinct. You are fragmented. The healing consists of soldering the wires again. It consists of recognizing that you are the lover and the beloved. You are the one who penetrates, consciousness, and the one who receives, body. You are the sculptor and the marble. The sexual tension you feel is not a sign that you lack something from outside. It is a sign that your own poles are charged and seek to close within you. That anxiety you feel is not loneliness. It is unconducted voltage. It is accumulated static electricity that cannot find the grounding wire. Do not look for another person to act as your wire. Be the wire yourself. In the second part, we will enter the forbidden and misunderstood practice, sexual self-cultivation. We will stop calling it masturbation, which has connotations of waste and shame, and call it self-ignition. We will learn to use hands, breath, and attention to close the circuit, generate the voltaic arc, and bathe in our own light without spilling a single drop of essence. The self-ignition ritual and the Egyptian ankh. We have diagnosed the problem. The disconnection of the internal poles makes us dependent. Now we go to the technical solution, how to close the circuit in solitude. Society has given us two options for solo sexuality. Compulsive masturbation. Fast, mechanical, focused on genital friction, accompanied by porn or external fantasy, ending in discharge, fission, and guilt, emptiness. It is an act of throwing out the garbage. Repression. Don't touch yourself. It's dirty, sinful, a waste of time. The third way, the alchemist's way, is self-cultivation or tantric masturbation. It is a charging ritual. You do not seek relief. You seek potency. You do not seek to end. You seek to expand. You do not imagine another person. You feel yourself. The goal of this ritual is to connect the anode, brain, heart, with the cathode, genitals, so that the energy flows in a closed, continuous loop, recharging every cell in your body. The preparation, the sacred space, Do not do this in the bathroom in a rush. Do not do it with your phone in your hand. You need a space of respect. It is a meditation. You are about to manipulate nuclear material. Turn off the lights. Light a candle if you want. Make sure you are not interrupted. The golden rule: zero external stimulus. No porn, no photos. If you use porn, you are giving your energy to a screen. You are connecting your wire to a digital black hole. All attention must be inside your skin. You must excite yourself with your own sensation, with your own breath, with your own life. At first, this is difficult. The addicted brain will say, "This is boring. I'm not aroused by touching myself without seeing anything." This is normal. It is dopamine desensitization. Endure the boredom. Keep breathing. The sensitivity will return, and when it does, it will be 1,000 times more potent than the artificial kind. Phase 1, polar activation, healer's hands. Your hands are the bridges. They have electromagnetic polarity. Right hand, positive, emitting. Left hand, negative, receiving. Start by touching your entire body except the genitals. Caress your chest, your belly, your thighs, your face. Awaken the skin. The skin is the boundary of your universe. Activate the peripheral charge. Breathe deeply. Connect with your heart. Feel gratitude for your body. You are courting yourself. You are telling your body, "I see you. I feel you. I am here with you." This activates oxytocin and relaxes defensive tension. Phase 2, cathode ignition, conscious genital stimulation. Now bring one hand to your genitals, but do not use the quick friction touch. Use the listening touch. Touch slowly. Vary the pressure. The goal is not to climax quickly. The goal is to generate heat. Start building the arousal. Feel the blood filling the area. Feel the heartbeat. That is the reactor turning on. Keep your breath deep and slow. If you pant, you lose energy. If you breathe slowly, you contain it. Phase 3, closing the circuit, the Anki. When the arousal is high, say a 7 out of 10, stop the physical stimulation or reduce it to a minimum. Now you are going to move the energy. We are going to use the Ankh technique, the Egyptian key of life. The Ankh is a cross with a loop at the top. It represents the circuit of sexual energy. Inhalation, ascent. Contract the pelvic floor, Mula Bandha. Visualize the energy rising from the genitals up your spine, the straight part of the cross, to the crown. The loop, turn. Upon reaching the crown, do not let the energy shoot out. With the breath held, visualize the energy looping, curving forward, and flowing down through the brow center, nose, and mouth. Exhalation, descent. Exhale and feel the energy flow down the throat, the heart, and the navel, returning to the genitals through the front, closing the loop of the Ankh. Re-entry. The energy re-enters the sacrum genitals, but now refined. It enters from behind and joins the new fire you are generating. Repeat this cycle. Touch ///////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////// Stop /////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////// arouse. You are acting as a two-stroke engine, compression and expansion. Every loop the energy takes through your orbit, it becomes finer, more luminous. The dense, heavy arousal, I want to finish, transforms into a full-body electrical vibration. I want to vibrate. You will begin to feel spasms of pleasure in your spine, neck, and feet. That is the Valley Orgasm. It is not a peak that rises and falls. It is a plateau that extends. You can stay in that state for 20 minutes, an hour, whatever you want. You are bathing in your own youth hormones. Phase 4, the internal marriage, psychic polarity. While doing this, play with your mind, invoke your two polarities. Feel your masculine side, your firmness, your structure, your penetrating consciousness. Feel your feminine side, your softness, your openness, your capacity to feel pleasure. Imagine that your consciousness is making love with your body. Your mind penetrates the sensation. Your body receives the attention. You do not need anyone else in the room because the lover and beloved dynamic is occurring within your own psyche. This is the secret of completeness. When you manage to satisfy yourself so deeply, not from friction but from energetic circulation, the neurotic need for a partner disappears, And paradoxically, that is when you become irresistible, because no one is more attractive than someone who needs nothing. You emanate the frequency of wholeness, and others who are broken and empty are drawn to your gravity like moths to the light, hoping to be infected by your fullness. Phase 5, the sealing and storage. When you decide to finish, ideally without ejaculating, or if you choose to do so, that it be conscious and rarely, you must store the energy. Do not get up and leave without further ado. Place both hands over your navel, dantian. Swirl your hands in a spiral over your belly, 36 times in one direction, 24 in the other, according to the Taoist tradition, or simply rub until you feel warmth. Visualize that all the electricity you have generated in the body gathers and condenses into a shining pearl behind the navel. Close the pores. Seal the aura. Say, "This energy is mine. I keep it for my life. I keep it for my creation." Get up. Feel the difference. Instead of feeling drained, sleepy, and ashamed post-fission, you feel awake with your eyes wide open, your chest expanded, and a calm smile post-fusion. You are charged, ready to write, to train, to lead, to love. Solitude as a laboratory. The next time you are alone at home on a Friday night, don't feel sad. Don't think, "I'm a loser, I don't have a date." Think, "I have the lab free." It is your opportunity to calibrate your instruments. It is your opportunity to raise the voltage without the risk of burning anyone else. Self-cultivation is the basis of sexual mastery. You cannot be a great lover to another if you don't know how to conduct the energy within your own body. If your wiring is burned out, if your poles are disconnected, when you touch a partner, you will only seek to discharge your tension onto them. You will use them as an energetic toilet. But if your poles are connected, if your circuit roars with clean power, when you touch a partner, you will give them a jolt of life they will never forget. You will make them part of your circuit. You will raise them with you. Internal polarity is the prerequisite for healthy external polarity. First, marry yourself. Unite your heaven and your earth. Become the alchemical androgen, the complete being. And from that wholeness go out into the world to play, not to beg, to play. Because the one who is full does not beg, they offer. And the universe heaps gifts upon the one who already feels like a king. Chapter 7, Neuro-Eroticism. We have spent the last 6 chapters discussing plumbing, pressure, and voltage. We have learned to extract the jing from the sacrum, prevent it from spilling out through the genitals, and propel it upward against gravity. But why? What is the final destination of this epic journey through the 33 vertebrae? The destination is a small cave located at the exact geometric center of your cranium. A dark space, protected by layers of bone and tissue, bathed in cerebrospinal fluid. Anatomists call it the third ventricle. The ancient masters called it the cave of Brahma, the Holy of Holies, or the nuptial chamber. It is here that the final miracle of the Thermodynamics of Eros occurs. It is here that sexual energy, which began as an animal reproductive impulse in the pelvis, is completely sublimated to become consciousness light. Welcome to the era of Neuro-Eroticism. Neuro-Eroticism has nothing to do with thinking about sex. It is the physiological state in which the brain is literally penetrated by the individual's own vital energy. It is the moment when the brain stops functioning on the reserve battery, basic glucose and oxygen, and begins functioning on the nuclear fuel, enters OHAS or transmuted sexual essence. When this occurs, the brain enters a state of superconductivity. Neuronal networks synchronize, hemispheres balance, and latent centers that, in the average human, the compulsive discharger, remain dormant and atrophied throughout their lives, are activated. The protagonists of this event are 2 master glands that act as cosmic lovers inside your head. The pituitary gland, hypophysis, located behind the bridge of the nose. It is the master gland of the endocrine system. In mysticism, it represents the feminine pole, the moon, water, the magnetic cathode. It governs growth and the body's chemistry. The pineal gland, epiphysis, located further back and up in the deep center. It is pinecone-shaped. In mysticism, it represents the masculine pole, the sun, fire, the electric anode. It is the third eye. In a disconnected human, addicted to fission, These two glands vibrate asynchronously. They are separated. There is a divorce in the head. But when you apply the hydraulic pressure we learned in the previous chapter, the sacrocranial pump, and force the sacred oil charged with sexual electricity to enter the third ventricle, the Hieros Gamos, sacred marriage, occurs. The conductive fluid unites the positive pole, pineal, with the negative pole, pituitary. The circuit closes in the upper arc. A spark of real light is produced inside the brain. It is not a metaphor. It is a piezoelectric and bioluminescent phenomenon. Let's talk about the hard science of the pineal gland, because it is the key to everything. For decades, Western science dismissed it as a useless evolutionary vestige, an atrophied eye. They were half wrong and half right. It is indeed an eye. If you dissect a pineal gland, you find that its interior is lined with photoreceptor tissue, very similar to the retina. It has cones and rods. It is wired to the visual cortex. But why would you have an eye in the center of a dark skull where sunlight doesn't reach? Because that eye is not designed to see external light, it is designed to see the light within. It is designed to capture the photons that are generated when sexual energy collides with the crystals of the brain. Furthermore, the pineal gland is not a piece of soft flesh. It is full of water and microcrystals of calcite, calcium carbonate, apatite, and magnetite. These crystals have piezoelectric properties. Remember what we said about bones and fascia. If you squeeze a crystal, it emits electricity and light, photons. When you perform the big draw, Chapter 5, and pressurize the cerebrospinal fluid toward the brain, you are applying mechanical pressure on the pineal gland. You are squeezing the pine cone. By compressing the microcrystals, they activate. They begin to shine. They generate an intense electromagnetic field. The gland becomes an emitting and receiving antenna. When refined sexual energy hits this antenna, the signal is amplified. Suddenly, your brain changes frequency. You transition from beta waves, normal wakefulness, stress, survival, to gamma waves, hyperprocessing, genius, synthesis, insight. The gamma state is the eureka state. It is the state where symphonies are composed, impossible equations are solved, and prophetic visions occur. It is the state of the gods, and this entire system operates on the same fuel you use for an erection or lubrication. It is the same energy. The difference is that the common man uses the energy to inflate an organ of flesh, the penis, and seek a little death, orgasm. The alchemist uses the energy to inflate an organ of crystal, the pineal, and seek eternal life. How does Neuro-Eroticism feel? It is an unmistakable sensation. It begins as a pleasant warmth or pressure in the back of the neck or the center of the head. Then it feels like a cerebral erection. Literally, you feel your brain is turgid, alive, vibrant. Internal vision lights up. Even with your eyes closed, you see lights, geometric patterns, violet or golden flashes. They are not random hallucinations. It is your own pineal retina detecting the discharge of the activated crystals. You feel a bliss, ananda, that is not localizable in any part of the body, but that permeates your existence. It is an orgasm that has no peak or drop. It is a steady-state orgasm. It is the brain making love to the cosmos. But there is one enemy to this process: calcification. Due to fluoride in the water, processed diets, lack of sleep, and solar disconnection, the pineal gland of most modern adults is calcified. It has become an inert stone. The crystals are stuck. They cannot vibrate. They are broken antennas. That is why people are cynical. That is why they lack imagination. That is why they cannot visualize their future. They have no screen. The practice of the thermodynamics of Eros, the constant pumping of fresh, charged sexual fluid toward the brain, has a decalcifying effect. The constant flow of energy and sonic vibration, as we will see with mantras or humming, breaks the calcium shell. It frees the crystals. It restores vision. In this first part, I want you to change your definition of sex. Sex is not what happens between your legs. That is only the starting mechanism. The true sexual act, the great act, occurs inside the cranium. Your genitals are only the servants who prepare the feast so the king, brain, and queen gland can eat. If you remain in genital pleasure, you remain in the kitchen eating the scraps. Go up to the dining room. In the second part, we will talk about the menu of that feast. We will talk about the pharmacy of God. We will see how, under the pressure of sexual energy, the pineal stops producing normal melatonin and begins synthesizing the most potent and psychedelic molecules known to man, transforming your reality from within. The pharmacy of God and the genius protocol. If part 1 was about physics, pressure, crystals, electricity, part 2 is about chemistry. When you manage to activate the pineal reactor with ascending sexual energy, the brain becomes the most advanced chemical laboratory in the universe. It begins to secrete substances that are illegal in most countries if synthesized in an external laboratory, but which are your divine birthright when you produce them yourself. To understand this, we must look at the cycle of light and darkness and how sexual energy accelerates this cycle. The pineal gland is a photosensitive transducer. During the day, under sunlight, it produces serotonin. It is the molecule of being awake, of well-being, of activity. During the night, in darkness, the pineal takes that serotonin and methylates it, adds a methyl group to convert it into melatonin. It is the molecule of sleep, lucid dreaming, and cellular repair. But what happens when you add high sexual voltage to this normal cycle? What happens when the pineal is vibrating at gamma frequency and the crystals are emitting internal light? The alchemy goes one step further. The pineal takes melatonin and refines it even more. It adds more methyl groups and changes its cyclic structure. It produces pinoline, 6-MeO-THBC. Pinoline is a beta-carboline. It is an MAO inhibitor, monoamine oxidase. This means it allows other neurotransmitters to accumulate and potentiate their effects. And at the climax of transmutation, the pineal theoretically synthesizes DMT, dimethyltryptamine, and 5-MeO-DMT. These are the spirit molecules. Endogenous DMT does not make you hallucinate in the pathological sense. It allows you to perceive more reality. It breaks the brain filters that normally limit your perception to 3D survival. Suddenly you perceive the interconnectedness of all things. You see time as nonlinear. You access information from the quantum field. You have ideas that seem to come from somewhere else. This is what we call genius. The genius is not a smarter person. The genius is a person whose brain is bathed in this sacred chemical cocktail, oxytocin plus pinoline plus DMT plus endogenous dopamine, allowing them to process information at a speed and depth impossible for the dry brain. Tesla, Einstein, Da Vinci, Steve Jobs, many of them spoke of moments of pure vision where the idea appeared complete in their mind. They did not deduce it logically. They downloaded it. Their antenna was turned on. Their reactor was pumping. Napoleon Hill, in Think and Grow Rich, dedicated an entire chapter to the mystery of sexual transmutation. He stated clearly, "Men who have accumulated great fortunes and achieved outstanding recognition possessed a highly developed sexual nature." And he added, "Sexual energy is the creative force of all genius. There never has been, nor will there ever be, a great leader, builder, or artist who lacks this driving force. The average man or woman who sexually discharges every time they feel pressure never accumulates enough steam pressure to activate the synthesis of pinoline or DMT. They stay in the cheap serotonin-dopamine cycle. They live in standard reality. The alchemist, by retaining and raising the energy, breaks the glass ceiling of normal perception. The activation protocol technique. How do we force this process? How do we bring the fire to the pine cone? You already know how to pump, Chapter 5. Now we are going to learn how to focus. You need a technique to direct the jet of sexual energy with laser precision toward the center of the cranium. Technique: Shambhavi Mudra with Kachari Mudra, the seal of vision. 1. Charge the system. Perform the spinal breathing or the big draw to bring the energy to the head. Feel the pressure above. 2. Shunman, close the switch. Press the tongue to the soft palate as far back as possible. This is Kachari Mudra, or a preliminary version. It connects the electric circuit. Fix the gaze. With your eyes closed, roll your eyeballs upward and inward, as if you wanted to look at the center of your forehead, the brow center. This is Shambhavi Mudra. Physiologically, This tenses the optic nerves which pull on the meninges and exert direct physical pressure on the pituitary and pineal glands. 4. The laser visualization. Visualize that the sexual energy you have raised is a white laser beam. This beam leaves the base of your skull, crosses the center of your brain, and hits the screen of your forehead. Maintain the tension in your eyes. Keep the tongue pressed. Listen to the internal sound. A sharp buzzing is common. It is the vibration of the crystals. 5. The silent darkness. Ideally, do this in total darkness. External light inhibits the pineal. Darkness activates it. If you can, use a blindfold. In that darkness, look for the internal light. At first, you will see blotches. Later, you will see a tunnel or a blue-violet eye. That is the portal. The creative application, how to use the high. Once you are in this state of neuro-eroticism, activated brain, vibrating body, clear vision, what do? Don't just stay and enjoy the ride. Use it. This is the most potent materialization energy that exists. Problem solving. If you have a problem in your business or life that you cannot solve logically, enter this state. When you are at the peak of the vibration, launch the question to the I, and wait. The answer will come like lightning, complete, spherical, perfect. Creative visualization. What you visualize in this state is not a fantasy, it is a prophecy. You are imprinting your desire onto the quantum field with the most indelible ink that exists, sublimated Jing. The emotional and electrical intensity of this state collapses the wave function of reality much faster than cold visualization. Art and deep work. If you write, paint, or code, do it in this state. The words will flow on their own. Time will disappear. You will be channeling. The danger of mental lust. There is a subtle trap here. Sometimes when raising the energy to the brain, instead of turning into spiritual light, it turns into high-definition sexual fantasy. The brain gets so excited that it starts projecting erotic images with stunning vividness. If you fall into the trap and start interacting with those fantasies, the energy will flow back down. The pineal will send the signal to the pituitary, which will send the signal to the testicles, ovaries, and you will end up masturbating compulsively. You will have turned the gold back into lead at the last second. If sexual images appear, observe them, thank them, and dissolve them in white light. Tell your brain, I don't want the image of the woman-man. I want the essence of beauty. I want the pure energy. Stay in the abstract light. Do not descend to form. Neuro-Eroticism is the best-kept secret of the spiritual and creative elite of history. It is the capacity to be drunk with God, using your own internal liquors. It is the capacity to see the invisible and create the impossible. Your brain is not a cold calculator. It is a chalice waiting to be filled, and the wine is at your base. Do not spill it on the ground. Serve it in the king's. Chapter 8. The Valley Orgasm. If you open a medical dictionary or ask the average person on the street, they will tell you that ejaculation and orgasm are synonyms. They will tell you they are the same event, that they occur together, end together, and mean the same thing: the end of sex. This linguistic and biological confusion is why 99% of men, and many women who imitate the male climax model, live a peak and crash sexuality. A sexuality that resembles a cheap roller coaster, a slow, anxious ascent, a frantic 3-second peak, and a sudden plunge toward exhaustion. The thermodynamics of Eros comes to separate the wires. Ejaculation and orgasm are not the same thing. They don't even occur in the same place. Ejaculation, the shot. It is a mechanical and muscular reflex. It occurs in the spinal cord. It is a function of the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight. Its objective is the expulsion of genetic material. It is a loss of fluid and pressure. It is physical. Orgasm, the explosion and implosion, it is an electrical and neurochemical event. It occurs in the brain, limbic system, and cerebral cortex. It is a function that can be parasympathetic or mixed. Its objective is the expansion of consciousness and connection. It does not require fluid loss, it is energy. The problem is that, in the basic package we come with from the factory, these two events are programmed to occur almost simultaneously. Nature, in its zeal to ensure reproduction, tied the prize, orgasm, to the cost, ejaculation. But you can reprogram the software. You can learn to have the prize without paying the cost. You can learn to have the orgasm without the ejaculation. To understand why this is the holy grail of sexuality, we must first look at the abyss that awaits after conventional ejaculation, the refractory period. The French, with their usual fatalistic poetry, call ejaculatory orgasm la petite mort, the little death. It is not an exaggeration. Immediately after expelling semen, the man's body suffers a hormonal collapse designed by evolution. The pituitary gland floods the bloodstream with prolactin. Prolactin is the lactation hormone in women, but in men, it acts as a massive sexual inhibitor. Its effects are immediate loss of erection, drastic drop in dopamine and testosterone, sensation of sleep, apathy and emotional disconnection from the partner, the famous turning over and snoring, subconscious fear or feeling of vulnerability. This refractory period can last from 15 minutes in young people to days in older men. During that time, you are not a creator. You are a recovery organism. You are in the red. Your battery is empty and your immune system is depressed. Nature has taken you out of the game so you don't expend more energy. Now imagine a different scenario. Imagine you climb the mountain of arousal. You get very high to the point where electricity runs through your skin, where the brain shines, where the pleasure is unbearable. And instead of jumping off the cliff, ejaculating and falling into the little death, you build a bridge. You cross to the other side. You maintain the altitude. You feel the orgasm, the electrical shock, the lights, the love, the convulsive pleasure, but you do not release the fluid. You do not open the pressure valve. Since there is no fluid loss, the brain does not release prolactin. The brain says, wait, there was no discharge. We are still in the game. Keep the energy high. Maintain the erection. Maintain the testosterone. There is no crash, no sleep, no disconnection. Instead of descending, you stay on the plateau. You stay in the Valley of Orgasms. From that plateau, you can rise again and have a second orgasm, and a third, and a 10th. You become a multi-orgasmic man. And for women, this means moving from the peak clitoral orgasm to the deep valley cervical or G-spot orgasm, which can last for hours. This changes the rules of reality. Sex ceases to be a race to the finish. It becomes a state of being. You leave the room after 2 hours of non-ejaculatory love, and you have more energy than when you entered. Your eyes shine. Your brain is razor sharp. Your body vibrates. You have hacked the reward cycle. You have stolen fire from Olympus and not burned your hands. But achieving this requires surgical precision. It requires understanding the difference between the point of no return and the point of inevitability. The point of no return is the moment when the ejaculatory reflex fires in the spinal cord. Once you cross that line, nothing in the universe can stop the fluid from exiting. The perineal muscles begin their involuntary rhythmic contractions and the pump expels the contents. It is too late. The art of the valley orgasm consists of navigating right at the edge of that cliff, in the high charge zone, without ever slipping into the expulsion reflex. It is surfing the biggest wave in the world without letting it break over you. Most men live their sexuality on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is rest and 10 is ejaculation. They go from 1 to 9 in 3 minutes, hit 10, and go back to 1 in 5 seconds. The alchemist learns to go up to 9 and stay at 9. And they discover that 9 is not a place of frustration. 9, when sustained and breathed, expands laterally. It becomes a 9.1, 9.2, 9.5. And in that infinite decimal zone, the pleasures that mystical poets tried to describe but could not are found. The full-body orgasm is found. The orgasm where you don't feel pleasure in the penis, but in the soles of your feet, in your heart, in your crown, and in the electromagnetic field around you. In this first part, the challenge is mental. You have to break the neuronal association that says pleasure causes finishing. You have to redefine sexual success. Success is not staining the sheets. Success is how much electricity you are capable of sustaining in your nervous system without blowing the fuses and without opening the safety valve. Success is the capacity to contain God within you. In the second part, we will delve into the mechanics. How is it done? How do you slow down a high-speed train heading straight for the cliff without derailing? We will talk about the cool draw, cooling technique, muscle locking, and paradoxical breathing. Get ready to learn how to drive your Ferrari at $300 extra without brakes, using only the gears and the steering wheel of your consciousness. The surfer's technique and the implosive orgasm. If the theory is inspiring, the practice is demanding. Separating orgasm from ejaculation is like learning to sneeze inward without your head exploding. It requires muscular and mental control that goes against millions of years of evolutionary programming. But it is possible, and once you achieve it, you won't want to go back. We are going to divide the process into 3 technical phases: monitoring the scale, charge dispersion, and the implosive orgasm. Phase 1. Monitoring the scale, the thermometer. You cannot control what you do not measure. You need to develop a keen awareness of your arousal level on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 for initial arousal, erection, foreplay. 5-7, the plateau zone. This is where it feels good. There is heat, there is connection, but you have total control. Most people rush through here. You must learn to live here. 8 to 9, the danger zone, the edge. Here, breathing accelerates, muscles tense involuntarily, pleasure becomes sharp and localized in the glands. The point of no return is at 9.8. 10, ejaculation, fission, game over. The training consists of going up to 7 or 8, and when you feel yourself approaching 9, do something to drop back down to 6 or 7. This is called surfing the wave. You go up, you go down, you go up, you go down. Every time you go down, you don't lose the erection, you just lower the urgency. And every time you go up again, the energy becomes more potent, but less physical and more electrical. Phase 2, charge dispersion, cooling tools. When you are at 8.5 and the ejaculatory imminence alarm sounds, you have to act fast. You cannot simply try to hold on by clenching your teeth. Tension accelerates ejaculation. You need to disperse the concentrated heat in the genitals to the rest of the body. Use these tools. 1. The cooling breath. When you approach the point of return, your breathing becomes short and shallow. That tells the sympathetic nervous system, fire. To hack it, do the opposite. Inhale deeply through the nose, filling the belly. Exhale slowly through the mouth, as if gently blowing out a candle or making the ha sound. This breath activates the vagus nerve and cools the system. Visualize that with each inhalation, you draw the fire from the genitals and send it up to the heart, using the microcosmic orbit. 2. Pelvic floor relaxation, reverse Kegel. This is the best-kept secret. When a man approaches ejaculatory orgasm, his instinct is to contract the PC muscle, the one that cuts off urination. That rhythmic contraction is what pumps the semen. If you contract, you shoot. To separate the orgasm, you have to do the opposite. Push outward. Make the gesture of wanting to urinate or defecate gently. Relax the anus. Expand the perineum. By relaxing the pelvic floor at the moment of maximum arousal, you cut the ejaculatory reflex circuit. The energy arrives, seeks the tense muscle to bounce off and exit, doesn't find it because it is relaxed, and then it expands. It diffuses through the pelvis. It rises up the spine. Eye closure and third eye gaze. If the visual stimulation is too much, close your eyes. Roll your eyes up and in, Shambhavi Mudra. This disconnects the reptilian brain and connects the higher brain. It helps the energy rise. 4. The technical stop. Stop-start. If all else fails and you are at 9.5, stop. Halt all physical stimulation. Pull out the penis or stop touching yourself. Stay still. Breathe. Wait for the urgency to drop to 6. Then start again. At first, you will have to stop many times. With time, you will be able to stay at 8 without stopping, simply by breathing and circulating. Phase 3. The implosive orgasm, the Valley experience. If you practice this, rising and falling, breathing and relaxing, circulating the energy, a new moment will arrive. You will be at a very high level of arousal, a sustained 9, but without the urgency to spit it out. You will feel your body begin to vibrate. You may start shaking involuntarily, fascial tremors. You will feel heat in your spine, You will feel waves of pleasure that are not in the penis, but that run through your arms, your chest, your face. And suddenly, the brain clicks. The lights come on. You feel an explosion of bliss and ecstasy that floods you internally. You moan, you arch, you enjoy like never before. But there are no expulsive contractions below. The penis does not pulsate to spit. It pulsates to pump blood and energy upward. That is the Valley Orgasm or full-body orgasm. It is an implosion. The energy, instead of exiting, collapses toward the center of your being and explodes upward. You feel nourished, you feel full. And the best thing, when the pleasure wave ends, there is no crash. You are still aroused. You are still potent. You can have another in 5 minutes, or you can get up and go write a symphony. The emergency technique, the $1,000,000 point. If you go over the line and cross the point of no return, ejaculation is imminent. A mechanical handbrake exists. Taoist masters call it the $1,000,000 point, because knowing it is worth gold. It is the midpoint between the scrotum and the anus, the center of the perineum. If you strongly press that point with 3 fingers, or press your heel against it if sitting, you physically block the urethral and ejaculatory ducts. The semen cannot exit. It goes into the bladder, retrograde ejaculation. Note: this is not the ideal technique. It is an emergency technique. If you do it often, you confuse the body. Semen in the bladder is not dangerous. It is later urinated out. But energetically, it is an abrupt coitus interruptus. True mastery is mental and energetic retention, not mechanical blocking. But it is good to know you have an emergency brake just in case. The new paradigm of pleasure. When you master the Valley Orgasm, your relationship with pleasure changes. You stop being a fix addict. You become an energy gourmet. You start valuing sensitivity over intensity. You start valuing connection over friction. And you discover that the human body is designed for levels of pleasure that pornographic culture doesn't even suspect. For women, this is natural if they are given the time and space, and if the man doesn't finish in 5 minutes. They are multi-orgasmic by design. For men, it is an art that must be learned. It is a muscle that must be trained. But it is the best training of your life, because a man who can control his sexual fire can control anything in his life. If you can feel the most potent biological urge to reproduce and say, "No, not now, go up," then you can master fear, anger, and laziness. You become the captain of your soul. The Valley Orgasm is not the end of sex. It is the beginning of sacred sex. It is stopping visiting the mountaintop to stay and live on the summit. It is making ecstasy a habitable. Chapter 9, Sexual Magic. If you tell a materialistic scientist that you can change your physical reality, get money, heal an illness, attract an opportunity, using your orgasm, they will laugh. They will tell you it is magical thinking, primitive superstition. But if you talk to a quantum physicist about wave function collapse and the role of the observer, the conversation changes. And if you talk to a neurobiologist about states of transient hypofrontality and accelerated neuroplasticity, they will start taking notes. Sexual magic has nothing to do with wands, cauldrons, or Hollywood spells. Magic, in its purest technical definition, according to Aleister Crowley and chaos magicians, is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. And sexual magic is simply the use of the most potent fuel in the biological universe, Eros, to propel that will through the barriers of consensual reality. To understand why this works, we must first understand why your normal desires fail. You want things all the time. You want to be rich, you want to be loved, you want to be healthy. You think about it, you desire it, you make affirmations. But it doesn't happen. Why? Because you have a sensor. In your brain, a safety barrier exists, composed of your logical neocortex and your programmed subconscious. You say, "I am rich," and your sensor instantly replies, "Lie. Look at your bank account. You are poor. Don't talk nonsense." The sensor is the guardian of current reality. Its job is to maintain the coherence of your identity. If you believe you are poor, the sensor will block any attempt at reprogramming that contradicts that belief. Most manifestation techniques, law of attraction, visualization, etc., fail because they clash head-on with the sensor's wall. They are weak signals trying to penetrate a wall of lead. Here is where orgasm enters, as an engineering tool. Orgasm has a unique neurophysiological property that no other natural state has. It shuts down the sensor. During sexual climax, whether ejaculatory or implosive, a phenomenon called transient hypofrontality occurs. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of the ego, judgment, time, logic, and doubt, shuts down. It goes dark. Literally, during those seconds of ecstasy, you, your small personality, your fears, your debts, cease to exist. Only pure energy exists. Only the now exists. Only God exists. That moment of mental silence is the quantum window of opportunity. The wall has fallen. The guards are asleep or drunk on oxytocin. The door to the deep subconscious and the unified field is wide open. If, in that precise instant of emptiness, you manage to introduce a clear image or intention, it enters without resistance. It enters directly into the source code. The sensor is not there to say, "That's impossible." And once the command has entered the deep subconscious charged with the nuclear potency of orgasm, the system has no choice but to execute it. The subconscious does not distinguish between reality and fiction. It only obeys intensity. And there is nothing more intense than Eros. Let's talk about the physics of wave function collapse. In quantum mechanics, all possibilities exist simultaneously in superposition. A version of your future where you are a millionaire and another where you are broke both exist as probability waves. For one of those waves to become a particle, solid reality, it needs to be observed with sufficient energy. Most people observe their reality with low diffuse energy, worry routine. That is why their reality does not change. They collapse the same thing out of inertia. Orgasm is a peak of high-energy observation. It is a 1 billion watt camera flash. If at the moment of the flash you hold the image of your desire, you are collapsing that specific wave with immense creative violence. You are imprinting your will onto the fabric of space-time. Imagine your desire as a space rocket, a satellite you want to put into orbit. The rocket is the structure, the idea, "I want this job." But a rocket without fuel is just a piece of metal on the ground. Sexual energy is the liquid hydrogen fuel. If you fill the tank and light the fuse, arousal and climax, the rocket takes off. It breaks the gravity of your limiting beliefs, the atmosphere, and reaches space, the quantum field, where it begins to orbit and emit its signal until it manifests. People fail because they try to launch rockets by blowing with their mouth, weak mental desires, or because they burn all the fuel in an explosion on the ground without putting the rocket on top, recreational sex without intention. Sexual magic is simply the technique of putting the rocket on top of the explosion. But there is a vital ethical and technical nuance, sovereignty. This is not black magic to manipulate others. If you use this to try to force a specific person to love you, love spell, you violate the law of free will. Thermodynamics will punish you. The energy will bounce back and hit you. Obsession, karma, pain. Legitimate sexual magic is about your reality. It is about changing you so that your resonance attracts what you desire. You do not ask, "May Mary love me?" You ask, "I am irresistible love." You do not ask, "May my boss give me a raise?" You ask, "I am abundance and recognized worth." You work on your own toroidal field. In this first part, I want you to understand the magnitude of what you have between your legs. It is not just a pleasure organ. It is a biological magic wand. Every time you have had an orgasm in your life, you have done magic. The problem is that it has been unconscious magic. What were you thinking about in your last orgasm? Nothing? Energy waste. That you are alone and sad? Black magic against yourself. You have collapsed more loneliness. A degrading fantasy? You have collapsed shame and low self-esteem. Most people use their greatest power to create their own misery. They reinforce their lacks with each discharge. The alchemist decides to take command. They decide they will never again fire a stick of dynamite without placing it under a mountain they want to move. From now on, your pleasure has a purpose. Your pleasure is your work tool. In the second part, I will teach you the protocol, how to design the sigil, the programming code, how to raise the energy, and the most difficult part, how to keep the mind focused on the image exactly when the brain wants to shut down and dissolve into blankness. It is the art of riding the lightning, the sigil protocol and the shot into the void. If the theory is quantum physics, the practice is ritual engineering. You cannot improvise this at the last second. If you wait until you are about to orgasm to think, "What did I want?" you will fail. The blood is not in the rational brain, it is in the reptilian brain. You won't be able to formulate complex sentences. You need to prepare the ammunition before entering battle. The most efficient vehicle for transporting your desire across the threshold of orgasm is not a long sentence, "I desire to have a 20% dollar raise." That is too complex for the subconscious. The vehicle is a symbol or a holographic image. In chaos magic, this is called a sigil. Step 1. Coding, creating the bullet. Before starting any sexual activity, sit down and define your intention. Be precise. The universe is literal. Write it down. I have perfect health, or I generate $10,000 a month. Now convert that into an image or an abstract symbol. Visual method. Close your eyes and create a short 3-second scene that represents the final result already accomplished. Not the how you get there, but the end. Example, seeing the balance in your bank app, seeing your strong body in the mirror, feeling the firm handshake signing the contract. That 3-second scene is your holographic GIF. You must memorize it. You must be able to invoke it instantly. Sigil method, graphic. Eliminate the vowels and repeated letters from your sentence. Combine the remaining consonants into an artistic drawing, an elegant scribble that does not look like letters, but a magical symbol. Looking at that symbol should evoke the feeling of the desire, but without your logical mind reading the sentence. Sensor bypass. Step 2. Charging, raising the voltage. Now begin the sexual ritual. It can be solo, self-cultivation, or with a partner, dual sexual magic. The goal here is not to rush to the end. The goal is to accumulate charge. Use the techniques from the previous chapters: breathing, microcosmic orbit, retention. Raise the arousal to level 8 or 9. Stay there. The longer you stay in the high-energy plateau, the more fuel you accumulate for the rocket. You are drawing the bowstring. During this phase, do not obsessively think about the desire. Enjoy the pleasure. Connect with your body. Let the sexual energy fill every cell. You are charging the laser battery. Step 3. The launch, the critical moment. When you decide it is time to release the energy, either through conscious physical ejaculation, an implosive valley orgasm, or an energetic discharge towards the brain, you must act with sniper precision. Just as you feel the involuntary spasm begin, just as the self begins to dissolve and the mind goes blank. 1. Invoke the sigil image. Bring the image to your mind with visual violence. Put the symbol in front of your closed eyes, or visualize the final scene. 2. Fuse pleasure and image. Feel that all the pleasure running through your body, all that electricity is not just feeling good, it is power. Visualize that power entering the image. The image lights up, shines, becomes incandescent, almost blinding. You are injecting life into the thought form. 3. The shout exhale. At the supreme moment of climax, push that charged image out of you. If it is an implosive orgasm towards the brain, visualize the image exploding in the center of your cranium and imprinting itself on the universe. If it is an expansive or ejaculatory orgasm, visualize the image shooting out from your heart or genitals towards the quantum field, like a laser beam crossing galaxies. 4. The void. Immediately after the peak, when you fall into rest, forget the image. Let the image dissolve into darkness. Stop thinking about it. This is crucial. You have to let go of the arrow. If you keep thinking about the desire, you are holding the arrow. It cannot fly. Step 4. Radical detachment, physical faith. After the ritual, enter a state of I don't care. You have done the work. The order has been sent. The post-orgasmic state, clarity, relaxation, is the perfect state of detachment. Your brain no longer has seeking dopamine. It is satisfied. Use that biological satisfaction to feel, It is already done. I don't need to worry anymore. It is real. That certainty, combined with the massive energy you just released, is what collapses the wave. Sexual magic with a partner. The fusion of reactors. If you are lucky enough to have a partner willing to practice this with you, the power is squared. It is not 1 + 1 $2. It is 1 + 1 to $11. When two toroidal fields fuse in love and pleasure, they create a third field called the vesica piscis, or unified field, at the moment of mutual or synchronized orgasm. If both visualize the same goal, the force of manifestation is unstoppable. It can be a common project, a house, the healing of one of the two, or the conception of a child, which is biological sexual magic par excellence. Look into each other's eyes at the moment of climax. Eyes are portals. Project the image through the other's third eye. Circulate the energy in a loop. You exhale and give. She inhales and receives. She exhales and gives to you. It is a double particle accelerator. The magician's traps. Lust for result. Why does it sometimes fail? Because of lust for result. If you do the ritual desperate to see results tomorrow, you vibrate in lack and fear. Orgasm amplifies what you feel. If you feel desperation while you climax, you amplify desperation. You must feel gratitude and possession. The orgasm must feel like a celebration that you already have what you are asking for. It is a victory party, not a beggar's plea. Thank you. How good it is to have this. What a pleasure this reality is. That is the vibration that materializes. The use of dirty energy. What if you have dark fantasies or fetishes? Don't judge them. They are energy. In sexual magic, we do not repress the shadow. We use it as fuel. If something taboo excites you, use that arousal to raise the energy. But at the last second, when you launch the beam, change the slide. Use the dirty gasoline of the fetish to propel the clean rocket of the elevated desire. It is pure alchemy, transforming manure into roses. Do not feel guilty about what excites you. Use it. Energy is neutral. Intention is what counts. Operational conclusion. You have been wasting your ammunition shooting into the air. You have been using the force capable of creating human life, or empires, simply to stain a tissue or fall asleep quickly. Sexual magic is the recovery of your creative sovereignty. It is saying, my pleasure is not an end in itself, my pleasure is the engine of my life. The next time you feel the fire rise, do not seek only relief. Seek results. Prepare your sigil. Prepare your vision. And when you reach the edge of the abyss of pleasure, do not jump into the void. Jump into your new life. Imprint your will on the stars with the ink of your own ecstasy, and watch how the universe, which cannot resist the command of a joyful creator, begins to reorganize itself to give you what you have asked. Chapter 10. Hieros Gamos. We have reached the end of the operations manual. For 9 chapters, we have dismantled your body and psyche, as if they were a combustion engine that needed to be rebuilt for nuclear fusion. We have talked about reactors in the sacrum, hydraulic pumps in the spine, chemical laboratories in the brain, and laser beams of manifestation. I have given you tools, protocols, breathing techniques, and muscle locks. I have asked a lot of you. I have asked you to strive to climb the current to sustain the pressure. But now, on this final threshold, I'm going to ask you for the most difficult thing of all. I'm going to ask you to stop doing. I'm going to ask you to contemplate the state that exists when the machine runs on its own, silently, effortlessly, in a perfect hum of perpetual motion. That state is the Hieros Gamos. Hieros Gamos is a Greek term meaning sacred marriage. In mythology and ancient ritual, it referred to the sexual union between a god and a goddess, or their human representatives, to ensure the fertility of the earth. But in the Thermodynamics of Eros, the Hieros Gamos is not an external ritual. It does not require another person. It does not require a stone temple. The Hieros Gamos is the biophysical event that occurs within your own body when the positive pole, your brain, spirit, masculine, and the negative pole, your pelvis, body, feminine, fuse permanently. Until now, you have been living in duality. Even while practicing the exercises in this book, there was a you, the mind, trying to control it, the sexual energy. There was a tamer and a beast. There was a driver and a vehicle. You felt the tension of having to raise the energy, having to avoid the fall, having to manage the desire. That tension is necessary in the training stage. It is the friction that polishes the mirror. But a day comes if you persist in the microcosmic orbit and the purity of intention when the friction disappears. The superconducting cable reaches zero temperature. The resistance drops. And the energy no longer needs to be pushed. The energy becomes you. And you become the energy. This is the state of the alchemical androgyne. I am not referring to a physical ambiguity or social gender. I am referring to an energetic completeness. The average human being is a half looking for their other half. A man seeks the feminine outside because he is disconnected from his own pelvis and heart. A woman seeks the masculine outside because she is disconnected from her own direction and structure. They are open, bleeding systems that need external plugs. The master of Eros has closed the system. He has united his internal sun and his internal moon. He has become the rebes, the double thing of the medieval alchemists. How does this internal marriage feel physiologically? It feels like a solid column of light. You no longer feel that the energy is down or up. You feel that your entire central axis, from the perineum to the crown, is a single incandescent and stable tube. Sexual desire is no longer an itch in the genitals that distracts you. The desire has expanded to become a state of total body vibration. You live in a state of static orgasm. Your cells are vibrating at the frequency of pleasure, but it is a calm pleasure, without urgency, without a peak, without the need for discharge. It is the pleasure of existing. In this state, the internal civil war has ended. The body no longer fights the spirit. Instinct is no longer the enemy of reason. The beast, animal Eros, has not been killed or caged. It has been crowned. It has realized that it too is divine. And the angel, the superior intellect, has descended from its ivory tower to inhabit the flesh, realizing that without the warmth of the beast, it is sterile. The Hieros Gamos is the healing of humanity's original wound, the belief that we are spiritual beings trapped in a dirty body. You are not trapped. You are anchored. Your body is not a prison. It is the laboratory. And sex is not a distraction from the spiritual path. It is the rocket fuel. When this fusion occurs, your relationship with the external world changes. You stop being a beggar. Most human interactions, sexual, romantic, social, are transactions of beggary. Please love me. Please desire me. Please give me the pleasure I don't know how to give myself. Please validate my existence. We go with an empty cup asking someone to pour a drop into it, but the being who has consummated the internal marriage has a cup overflowing. He is a fountain. When you enter a room, you are not scanning to see who can give you something. You enter radiating. Your mere presence changes the thermodynamics of the place. People are drawn not by your physical appearance, but by your coherence. They feel that inside you, everything is in order. They feel that the internal father and mother have made peace, and that peace is magnetic. In this first part of the final chapter, I want you to visualize your hidden anatomy one last time. Look at your brain, the king's chamber, and look at your sacrum, the queen's chamber. For years they have lived in a painful divorce, communicating only through screams of pain or brief flashes of pleasure. Now the channel is open. The messenger, the charged cerebrospinal fluid, travels freely between them. They have recognized each other. They have loved each other. They have fused. You are the child of that union. You are the son of man and the son of light. You are conscious matter. You no longer need to do the microcosmic orbit as a duty. The orbit happens by itself. Every breath you take moves heaven and earth within you. Every beat of your heart distributes the elixir. You have reached critical mass. The chain reaction is self-sustaining. The reactor no longer needs operators. It operates with the intelligence of the universe. In the second part, we will talk about how this new human lives in the everyday world. What is sex with a partner like when you no longer need sex? What is creativity like when you no longer seek approval? We will talk about solar radiation and the final destiny of your energy, becoming a gift for the evolution of the species, the solar body and the legacy of light. Once the alchemical marriage has been consummated, The human being undergoes a mutation. He stops being a standard biological organism, an energy consumer, and becomes a solar generator, an energy emitter. This is known in esoteric traditions as the creation of the light body or the diamond body. What does this mean in terms of physics and daily behavior? It means that your electromagnetic field, your aura, changes in quality. It becomes dense, golden, impenetrable to negativity, and highly nourishing for those around you. You become a thermostat, not a thermometer. A thermometer reacts to the ambient temperature. If there is stress, it gets stressed. If there is lust, it gets aroused. A thermostat sets the ambient temperature. Your vibration is so strong and stable, thanks to internal fusion, that when you enter a chaotic environment, the chaos organizes itself to match you. When you are with a sexual partner, you do not get lost in their energy. You raise their energy to your level. The paradox of desire, having everything by wanting nothing. Here we reach the supreme paradox of Eros. When you have transmuted your sexual energy to the point of feeling constant internal fullness, you stop needing sex. It no longer controls you. It is no longer an itch you must scratch. You could live the rest of your life in perfect celibacy and be infinitely happy and creative. But at the same time, your capacity to enjoy sex becomes infinite because you no longer use it as an anxiolytic. You use it as a celebration. You use it as an art. If you choose to unite with another person, it is not to take something from them. It is to share your overabundance. Sex ceases to be a friction of skins and becomes a dance of energy fields. And, curiously, when you need nothing, the universe offers you everything. Potential partners appear without you looking for them. Material abundance flows because your creativity, which is sublimated sexual energy, is unlocked and generating massive value for the world. You have left the frequency of the hunt, predator-prey, and have entered the frequency of the attraction based as flower-bee. The flower does not chase the bee. The flower simply is, in its maximum expression of color and aroma, and the bee comes. Your refined jing is that aroma. The second innocence. There is a quality that the master of Eros recovers, innocence, but not the ignorant innocence of the child who knows nothing about sex. It is the second innocence of the sage who knows everything, has integrated their shadow, has tamed their dragon, and can now look at the world with clean eyes. You no longer see bodies as flesh to consume. You see bodies as temples that contain the same spark as you. The dirty or predatory gaze disappears. Your gaze becomes penetrating but healing. You can look into someone's eyes and that person will feel a warmth in their chest, an openness, a recognition. You are transmitting Shakti, energy, through your eyes. This is what the great masters did. A darshan, sacred gaze, is nothing more than a being with a full reactor sharing their excess voltage with someone whose battery is low. The legacy. Being a battery for the world. Finally, you must understand your responsibility. Having learned the thermodynamics of Eros is not just a trick to be more productive or happier, it is a service to the species. The world is suffering an energy crisis, not of oil but of Eros. People are switched off, they are depressed, anxious, disconnected, addicted to cold screens. Fire is missing. Passion is missing. Life is missing. By becoming a fusion reactor, you become a charging node for the human network. Your vitality infects your family. Your clarity inspires your team. Your love awakens your partner. You are injecting fresh jing into the dying system of society. You don't have to preach. You don't have to teach techniques if you don't want to. You just have to be. One enlightened human being is worth 1,000 switched-off human beings. Your mere presence on a bus, in an office, or at a dinner raises the level of consciousness of everyone present, simply by sympathetic resonance. Your atoms are vibrating faster, and the atoms of others accelerate to try to catch up with you. The closing of the circle, the Ouroboros. The final symbol of alchemy is the Ouroboros, the serpent biting its tail. It represents the perfect closed system, self-sufficiency, eternity. You are that serpent. Your energy rises up the back, flows down the front and re-enters. You feed yourself, you recycle yourself, you give life to yourself. You are no longer linear. Birth, iTaro, reproduction, death. You are circular, and the circle is the shape of God. You have completed the journey. You started as the owner of an unstable reactor that exploded constantly, fission. You learned to seal the leaks. You learned to build the pipes. You learned to pump the fluid. You learned to ignite the brain. You learned to collapse reality with your pleasure. And now you have learned to disappear into the light that you yourself have created. Conclusion: the firebearer and the new energetic elite. You have reached the end of the transmission. In a few moments the recording will cease. Silence will return to your room or the interior of your car. You will remove the headphones and find yourself again in everyday reality. The noise of traffic, mobile notifications, the demands of your family or your job. At first glance, the world has not changed. The laws of society are still there, pushing you toward consumption, distraction, and quick discharge. The supply of cheap dopamine is still a click away. Culture still screams at you that sex is a toy, an anxiolytic, or a commodity. But you have changed. You can no longer look back with innocence. You have bitten the apple of knowledge, but this time it has not expelled you from paradise. It has given you the keys to build it inside you. Now you know what you carry at the base of your spine. You know you are not a mammal designed simply to replicate genes and die. You know you are a biological fusion reactor designed to convert dense matter into consciousness light. This audiobook has not been a collection of sexual tricks. It has been a manual of deprogramming. We have dismantled the lie of scarcity. We have exposed the trap of fission, that suicidal habit of breaking our energetic integrity for a few seconds of relief. We have mapped the sacred plumbing that connects your genitals with your brain, revealing that enlightenment is merely a matter of correctly applied hydraulics and voltage. You have learned to close the escape valves. You have learned to turn on the pump. You have learned to look into the eyes of your own desire without blinking, without judging it, and without letting yourself be consumed by it. But technical knowledge is only half the equation. The other half is character. From this moment on, you face the greatest challenge of your life: sustaining the charge. It is easy to read about high voltage. The difficult thing is to live as a high-voltage wire in a low-voltage world. In the coming days and weeks, you will feel the fire. You will feel a new intensity in your body. You may feel more aggressive, more impatient, more hungry for life. Your old personality, addicted to comfort and the sedation of frequent ejaculation, will panic. It will tell you, it's too much, I can't bear this pressure. I need to go back to normal, I need to relax. That is the moment of truth. That is the moment you decide whether you are a cracked container or a golden grail. Remember, pressure is a privilege. Pressure is what turns coal into diamond. If you feel pressure in your system, do not rush to relieve it. Use it. Sit in front of your most ambitious project and let that pressure break your creative blocks. Stand before the person you love or desire to attract, and let that pressure become a presence so solid that you do not need words to communicate. Go to the gym and let that pressure break your physical records. You are becoming part of a new energetic elite. It is not an elite based on money or social status. It is an aristocracy of the spirit. While the masses weaken, chemically castrate themselves with pornography, and become docile due to a lack of real dopamine, you are accumulating sovereignty. A human being who controls their sexual force is uncontrollable by the system. Happiness cannot be sold to them because they manufacture it inside. They cannot be manipulated with fear because their nervous system is shielded with high-frequency electricity. They cannot be made tired because they recycle themselves. I also want to talk about your responsibility. By becoming a solar generator, your impact on the world changes. Your electromagnetic field, your torus, has expanded. You now encompass more space. This means that your internal state affects others with much greater force than before. If you transmute your energy into love and clarity, you will be a lighthouse. People will calm down when they are near you. Conflicts will dissolve in your presence. Your children and your partner will be nourished by your residual radiation. But if you accumulate energy and do not elevate it, if you remain in frustration or ego, you will burn those around you. Therefore, the practice of the microcosmic orbit and the Hieros Gamos are not optional. They are your safety measures. You have the ethical obligation to keep your energy circulating and refined. You do not have the right to be a nuclear reactor with radioactive leaks. You have the duty to be a life-giving sun. I want you to take one last image imprinted on your inner retina. Imagine the history of humanity as a long, dark night. Most people are damp logs that barely manage to ignite a weak, smoky flame, which goes out with the slightest wind. They spend their lives looking for warmth in other fires. You have decided to become a torch. You have decided to use your own resin, your own vital sap, Jing, to fuel a flame that does not depend on the external climate. That flame is your legacy. It no longer matters whether you have biological children or not. Your children are your works. Your children are the moments of genius. Your children are the quality of your love. You are fertilizing the world with your spirit, not just your body. The path of the thermodynamics of Eros is the solitary path of the warrior, but it is also the ecstatic path of the lover. There will be days when you fall. There will be days when the old programming wins and you seek the easy discharge. Do not blame yourself. Guilt is a waste of useless energy. Simply observe the fall, observe the difference in state, feel the drop in voltage, and with the coolness of a scientist return to the laboratory. Close the valve, turn on the pump, breathe, and rise again. Mastery is not never falling. Mastery is knowing how to quickly restart the reactor.